Hey, this is Dag, and you're listening to Beyond Trek Podcast.
Red alert.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Beyond Trek Podcast. I'm Dag. In the house, we have a full house today. It is Renzo, Big J, and Suzanne. This is the first time we've done all four of us in one place. And
is it?
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah.
No, we did the Will Wheaton interview, had all of us.
Oh, well, yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
Okay.
If
This is
you're
the first
counting episode
episode
reviews.
review.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm what is it, moving the goalposts?
the folks, you've got a 4-piece McNugget meal tonight.
Oh. 4-piece.
Barely a
This is
snack.
like the unhappiest of meals.
Not the unhappy meal.
Anyway.
Don't do it.
Anyway, Star Trek.
Star Trek, we are here to talk to you about Star Trek Picard, Season 2, Episode 9, Hide and Seek. And boy, was this episode a doozy. All of the action that you've been waiting for the last 4 episodes crammed into one barely 1 hour episode. Lots of things happened, so this is your spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. And also, this is your content advisory, as this episode does happen to deal with subject matter involving unaliving or suicide, your chosen word. So do keep in mind that. And without further ado, it's a scary time. I mean, I love the clouds. This opening sequence is like, it's Frankenstein time, man.
Yeah, they spared no expense at making this feel ominous as an episode.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
It was, and most of it was at night. I got a real Resident Evil vibe from it.
I wish, thinking about it now, I wish I'd looked into the director to see if maybe they had done horror stuff, because there was definitely a lot of horror. You got the zombies from the Borg and the body horror from a transporter thing that happens later, and obviously the death that becomes a focal point in young Picard's life. But the way that it was framed and filmed and the music, it was just all entirely a little horror film.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they did a really good job with that, right? Like, it reminded me a lot of one of the episodes of Game of Thrones, the one where they did the Battle of Winterfell, where the whole thing happens in darkness and you can never really tell. Granted, I didn't have much trouble with that episode with seeing details, but it was an intentionally dark episode.
Yeah.
And so was this.
Yeah, it was. And so I guess we start out on this epic zoom in to Rios, Teresa, and her son, whose name I keep forgetting.
Ricardo.
Real
Yeah.
quick,
Thank you.
real quick before you get in too far, I'm looking up the director here, Michael Weaver, and just going through here really quick. Nothing jumps out as being horror related or that genre.
That's
so
a good thing,
maybe-
because I hate jump scares.
I disagree. He did a show called Ouija Origin of Evil, or a movie called Ouija Origin of Evil. So I think he does have
Dude,
some
I
experience.
totally
at least.
remember
I
Ouija.
Okay.
I just never saw it. But I remember that being a thing. Awesome. All right, so he cut his chops, and then he moved on to do some other things, and he brought it back to Star Trek. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
All right, so episode starts with like thunderstorms rolling in. We get this setup that is very dark and ominous, like we mentioned before. As Dag was saying, Teresa, Ricardo are on La Sirena, and that's the moment where the Borg start activating the transporter remotely, hence my background, which I thought was a really neat scene, showing that the Borg tech overrides the default Starfleet or Confederation transporter colors to go back to their traditional green.
Ooh, yeah.
It's good detail there, good catch. I also want to point out that when the dudes beamed in initially, they weren't moving and reacting. They waited until Girardi Queen boarded the ship before they started doing their regular sweeps. I can see why that might confuse some people. These are military guys. They're going to go start clearing things before their leader arrives. No, these are Borg drones. These guys are assimilated, and Borg don't typically start moving until there's either a threat or until, like, the Queen tells them to. So I thought that made perfect sense from my perspective.
These guys, to me, unless I'm wrong, they kind of seem like assimilated light, like Miller
Yeah,
light, assimilated light. You know,
that's
they're
what they said was going to happen.
right, but they should not just react if there's a threat. It's like, okay, how am I trying to say this? They are already coming in knowing they're facing a threat.
And we've seen Borg board Enterprise before and not really do much or start shooting or anything before. So I mean, I get it. It's gonna seem strange that they're just gonna stand there until Girardi shows up. But that's very Borg. Like they board Borg cubes and spheres all the time in Voyager, and nobody ever starts shooting at them until they do something.
Right. It's still, these are 20th century mercenaries who've been assimilated. And I think it would make sense for the Queen to have to show up to be able to give them the distinct commands about what not and what to shoot.
Yeah, range control too, right? The network that she might be using to control them is probably real tiny.
Yeah, well, and if they just start shooting, they could damage vital systems that she absolutely needs, because her plan right now is apparently to shoot down the launch tomorrow.
Take the ship and shoot down the launch. Yeah, almost forgot about the launch because there's I'll get into it later.
Anyways, so we get this cool scene where Girardi Queen starts like shredding her red dress, walks over to the dead in the locker body of the original Queen, and like comments to herself, "You've looked better," or "We've looked better." And she then absorbs the Queen's bodysuit onto herself via nanites, a lot like programmable matter, which makes sense from the Borg perspective. That's like the natural evolution of nanites. So it was pretty cool.
I thought that was really neat. I thought that scene was neat. I thought it was a little gratuitous at one point, but
gratuitous in what sense?
Star Trek, just the whole like walking towards it. But I don't know. I think it was really dope, and I think this is random, and I don't think I got to talk about it. But I really loved that they had her in like boots. When at one point when she was in dress of like the Borg Queen deciding, finding boots somewhere. But yeah, no, that was
better than high heels. But she had to steal those boots from that redhead guy.
But it was I just thought it was.
They wore the same size boots.
They probably did not fit.
I don't know. When she was gliding across the hoods of those cars, it looked like they fit.
He could have had small feet, and that's fine.
You got feet like a lady.
It's like what we could do is you could totally make a GIF of her walking into the bar and then superimpose it with like the Terminator sizing everybody up at the bar.
I need your clothes. Take off your clothes.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your bike.
Exactly. Oh my god.
But Renzo, I think you mentioned something about was it the gratuity? Was it an interesting?
Yeah, so it caught me by surprise, and I saw several posts about this on Reddit that people were mad that they had put Agnes in this like essentially naked state for so long on screen, and they thought that it was inappropriate for Star Trek. Like this would be something problematic for them to show their kids, and I'm like, TVMA show, you are this is your concern. It's a very American take to be worried about a little nudity, especially when you don't see anything other than the back of a woman, right? And we saw much worse in Enterprise. We saw full-on side moves to Paul.
Oh yeah, there was all kinds of stuff.
The time that the Doctor was painting 7 of 9.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had almost blocked that out of my memory. Thank you, Dag, for bringing that one back.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to reassert that gratuity is part of Star Trek. I'm just trying to say that it's a weird thing to have a crunch on when there's so many other things that happen in this episode that you would expect those people who are like family forward to be concerned about, but they're not.
Yeah, and that's my only because the thing is I didn't know people were upset about it because I can't show my kids. Yeah, you shouldn't. This show is not like why
a TVMA.
No, I mean, that's my only right. But that's my only gripe would be that like because of what I've seen like in Star Trek's past with women, like every time I see a scene like that, I immediately go, "Is this okay? Are we comfy with that?" That's my only thing, but it wasn't that bad, honestly.
So a little skin that's not covered is worse than having your kids sit through the slurs, the F this and shit that.
Well, that was the thing, right? That the Reddit comments about this, like the number one response to that thread was literally, "This is the most American take. Only Americans are just concerned about a little nudity or sexuality on TV.
Only
Anywhere
in
else in the world, they'd be focused on the violence. Like we saw somebody get stabbed with a knife in the neck, but you're focused on the nudity, really, kind of stuff." And I was like, "Yep."
Oh, not slur. I meant swearing early. You guys know what I meant.
Appreciate that.
But yeah, so okay, as an American, you're watching the show with your kid. You're telling me that you have no problem with sheer fucking hubris but you've got an issue with, someone's forearm not being covered up and showing a little skin.
Yeah,
Really?
about a 2-second scene of like something that makes sense within the plot of like why that's happening.
Which
I'm
not gonna lie, like what they showed of Girardi is what I have to believe this. Like I don't know, it just seems like growing up as a kid, you see your parents walk through the house like
not naked.
No,
Yeah.
Am I the only
Totally.
one?
You
I
might
totally did.
Like
Apparently.
my mom would run to the laundry room and back to get something that she left in the dryer. But I mean,
my mom.
Oh,
the
I
most-
thought you meant just casually
like,
chilling.
the most I ever saw was exactly what we saw of Girardi. Like,
Yeah. Unexposed
it's
backside.
not that big a deal.
Not that big a deal. Anyways, what I was gonna say was though, it really harkens back to that scene in First Contact when the Borg Queen's like upper torso is being dropped down into the bodysuit again, and you can see some shapage of cleavage there. Cool.
Oh my god, cleavage?
No, but it was a movie, so it's different,
There's
right?
cleavage. Oh my god.
But yeah, so it just harkens back to that scene a lot, where she's just black bodysuit up until the chest. So it was a good shot.
Yeah, I love that about the Borg Queen iterations. It's just like, I don't know. It just they're all very like titties out, and I just think it's funny. Like I don't know. It's not a bad thing. It's not an overly sexualized thing. I mean it occasionally, but like I don't know. I just think it's funny that it stops right there in a specific V shape. Like it's just really funny to me.
Maybe it's comfortable for their bones.
They're
Well,
Borg
and remember
bones.
what we've said about the Borg Queen is that she is a seductress, if anything,
Yeah.
manipulator. So she's dressed the part, in my opinion.
All right, so our next scene is Talon's cool doorway smoke transporter dropping off Picard, Seven, and Raffi inside of the courtyard of the ruin house. They have to defend the ship, etc. And with that, like Talon starts handing out Romulan disruptor rifles and a Romulan disruptor pistol, which she like explains that you're lucky I managed to get these. So they are definitely low on weaponry, and there are 2 for 4 people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to share. You get
Yeah,
a couple
that-
shots, give it to me.
That being said, they are all do seem to be pretty decent shots when just providing covering fire for each other while they're doing stuff.
Oh, look at Dag's phaser rifle.
I'm
Nice,
good.
Dag.
I got this.
Nice.
Oh, I love it.
Where'd you get
It
that?
did seem. Oh my
I
god.
3D printed and made it.
Oh, sick!
You 3D printed that, man.
Well, it came in pieces, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's
Well, no, I
so
mean,
cool.
you don't have an industrial 3D printer. I figured you had to assemble some of that. It's full size rifle. That looks awesome, man.
Thanks.
3D printing is fun. All right, so then we get this scene where Rios, Teresa, and Ricardo come out of the ship. They run into the team, and they're asking about how much time they've got, like what's going on. He explains that the Girardi Queen is already on board. There's more coming, and we start seeing into the vineyard, and we start seeing more little green transportery, shimmery lights out throughout the vineyard. And we start seeing some green targeting lasers being pointed towards our heroic team. I loved the use of targeting lasers in this so much because it is such a reference to the Borg, like little eye beam that they always have.
Yep.
Such
It
a
was
good
awesome.
reference.
I mean, it actually took me a second to realize, like, oh, those are. That's not actually that's. It took me
Yeah.
a second to realize they were using like targeting beams instead of that just being
Yeah.
like a drone thing.
Laser sights.
Which it's just it's so good. I thought it was a really good element to the horror of it all. I think that sort of like alien scanning thing and like the dark rooms and the doing this in the doorway kind of thing. I thought it was really neat.
Yeah, there were a good number of posts as well of people who just don't understand what laser sights are. Maybe these are people who don't have like a gun obsessed country around them. But yeah, those aren't like supposed to be invisible. You're supposed to see them. That's kind of the point of the laser marker there. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that was a pretty cool scene. It makes sense that some special ops folks are going to have those too. What's up?
I smell beef.
Beef. I've got beef with like this entire sequence. You want to hear it now?
Sure.
We'll get it later.
No, let's get it out of the way
Want
now.
to get it over with? I've got a problem with this entire thing. You're telling me that a dozen or so more of trained, contracted mercenaries who
You
have
mean
now
Borg.
been Well, yeah, Borg now, but they were basically highly skilled, highly trained people. Did they become dumber
Yes.
and less?
We've seen drones
When
many
assimilated?
times act
Well, then-
like idiots.
Well, then why the hell would you assimilate them if that's going to be the case? Because you can't tell
Because
me
it's what the
that
Borg
Warm
do.
bodies and bullets.
Because
what
you're
the Borg do.
it's
because you're a lonely Borg Queen who needs to hear voices and it's running your system right now.
okay. That being said, let's say I go ahead and concede that point that these Borg got stupid. You're telling me that it was like a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio of the Borg to, let's see, you had Raffi, Seven, Picard, Rios.
Talon.
Okay, yeah. So we've got 5, and I counted probably a good 10 or more.
There were way more
Laser
than 10. I would have
sights.
guessed there were like 30 of those mercs
Yeah.
out there.
30. Okay, so you see where I'm going, right?
No.
Come on. Yes.
No, I
30
don't
against
see where you're
5?
going.
Princess says
It's
no.
What does it matter?
ridiculous.
They're drones. They have no
Still,
initiative.
but
So
they've
this is
got the
what
numbers.
This is what makes like an operator in special forces like a danger. They are individuals who act on their own but work in a team, right? The
Yeah.
Borg don't act on their own. The Borg don't think on their own. They just walk straight into fire. They do this all the time on Trek. It changes how you think, even if it doesn't take away your skills. So these guys are probably still great marksmen, but they don't think ahead. They just do as they're told.
My
These
thing
are-
as well
man.
would be that we also learn in this. I mean, yeah, the Borg Queen is stronger, can assimilate now, but probably not on the same scale and in the same way that had been done before. I mean, it's been reiterated over and over and over again that she's weaker, that
These
she's
are
struggling.
primitive
It's not the
assimilations,
same.
remember?
Yeah, so that's my only. Yeah, that would be my only explanation for it. But yeah, no, drones are meant to be robotic and not very not thinky. Very
Like,
just more of sort of
Big
dumb,
J.
do what they're told.
Think of it this way. Whenever we've seen people shooting at Borg drones in the past, from their first iteration onwards, a couple shots, and then they start adapting, right?
Mhm.
These drones are more primitive because the assimilation is more primitive. She's using stuff she could find in 2024 rather than the future, right? Even if they're going into a queen that is very developed, right?
Mhm.
Still not as good as classic Borg drones. Cool. If they're less capable than classic Borg drones, they're not very capable because Borg drones are a swarm vehicle, right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't like it, but I get what you're saying. It just it's such a handicap that didn't need to happen. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of this whole shootout at the Alamo, and the drones had the tactical advantage. The others had the home field advantage. They had some
Well-
protection there, but still, I
No, I
don't
see
like
where you're
it.
coming from actually, because I mean, I can see where you're kind of the whole like they're incredibly outnumbered and somehow managed to get past a bunch of special ops people. But I get that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like it's a theme in a lot of new Trek that I've noticed of just sort of this overwhelming peril that we get out of because that's television.
You know?
That's a drama. That happens in almost every episode of Discovery, in my opinion. And I'm not like criticizing it at all. I love Discovery.
I do.
I love new
criticize
Trek.
So
it.
Don't
here's-
come after me.
criticize it.
Here's the thing with Renzo's point. I get your point, Renzo. It's great, but that means that we have to consider that there is so much dumbing down by the writers in the depiction of these drones to validate what you're saying. Like, so severely handicapped that 30 of them have an issue with 5 people.
I wonder if that's a point though, because
I don't know if their mission was to kill them. We have no
True.
reason to think that their mission was to kill them. She'd probably benefit from assimilating them.
I'm
more.
gonna toss out that the reason our heroes managed to make it through was because these dudes were assimilated, because our heroes have 10, 15, 30 years of dealing with Borg, and if these guys had just been hitmen on patrol, everyone would have died. Because
And another one, firepower advantage. A Romulan disruptor rifle was better than the carbines these guys were shooting with.
that's
Let's be
true
real.
too.
They have
And-
to.
Okay.
yeah.
Granted, we
they
could
to
have
deal with
laced
these-
we could have laced those bullets with nanoprobes, and then they'd become little distance assimilators.
So
Sure.
Distance
Terrifying idea.
simulators, I love that.
they
New
become
headcanon.
they become assimilated enough to be stupid, but not enough to adapt to the weapons being fired
Yeah,
at them.
so the brain stuff that we've seen with the Borg, that's all simple stuff. She manages to do that with like touching the side of somebody's face, but we haven't seen any sort of like eruptions of coming out of her flesh, right? Like the Jurati Queen doesn't have tendrils coming out of the back of her head like every other queen, right? There are different kinds of assimilation going on, and whatever these dudes got was the bottom of the barrel. Your brain is linked up, you know, follow what I tell you to do, but you don't get any of the enhancements. They didn't seem super strong. They didn't seem any faster than your normal person. We're not getting Superman Borg here. They are ancient tech shitty drones that happen to have the reflexes of like trained killers.
Well, if this season up to this point hadn't already exhausted all of the goodwill I had or the suspension of disbelief, the bank that I had is already drained. Now you're throwing this on. You're in the negative.
This takes much. This doesn't take much.
You're in the negative goodwill on this whole thing. You know, it didn't last. You ran out already, and now you're going to tell me 30 can. Okay, that's my beef.
Yeah,
and
then I also wonder if
you're assuming that their mission was to kill them.
Was
their
it
mission may
not?
have simply no, we don't know. Their mission may have been to pin them down long enough for Jurati to do what she wanted. Right? That may have been all their job was. Keep them busy.
It could have been. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think I wonder if it wasn't sort of part of the point of the scene later with the whole like Agnes Borg Queen couples therapy, of, you know, we could be better than this, talking about individuals. I wonder if almost that kind of speaks to the reason that the drones are kind of dumb.
I got a problem
And
with
like
that
the
part,
individuality is, you know, but I really, I don't know.
When we think
I think
of
they're
the
dumb for a
Borg,
reason.
Right? When we think of the Borg, we usually think of them as the collective. Trillions of minds thinking together, speaking together, using their collective knowledge and collective abilities together, right? Here, we don't have that. We have 30 mooks, who probably aren't all that bright anyways, doing a very simple task, and they don't have the resources of the collective behind them, right? We know that the healing that the collective does is somehow through the collective, right? Like, when a Borg drone gets hurt, it heals them. We saw that in Regeneration. We see that in Voyager 2 when they wanted to link up, right? There's stuff that's just missing. These are shitty Borg, and we don't know exactly what their task was. And they succeeded at their task anyways. The Queen got what she wanted.
Well, I hope you guys are hungry because I've got a triple
You're
stack.
very beefy, I'm sure.
I've got a triple stack
Triple
of
stack?
Big J's beef tonight. Yeah. So hope you had a light lunch. That was the first one. So
All right, so moving
move on to the next ones. Beef.
Okay, so they take cover behind some barrels. Picard specifically says that they're trying to pin us down, right? While she takes La Sirena, which follows with what I was saying before. On board the ship, she's about to take over the thing. She's about to take over the computer. And at that moment, Agnes appears and continues to fight the Borg Queen for control of her own hand. They start, like, arguing, and at one point, she actually manages to poke around in the Queen's brain, and she starts fucking with her by showing, like, explosions of Borg cubes and such. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty neat. And then she walks out the ship's computer and hides the code from it with a fractal encryption code inside of a mobile emitter, which projects Elnor.
Where'd she get the fractal encryption code idea, I bet?
Star
I
Trek
wonder if
First
she maybe
Contact.
heard of it from Data.
Yeah. In the
She's
logs,
a
like,
cyberneticist, so that one makes sense completely to me.
Right.
Oh yeah.
here,
I
of
had
all the times the Borg tried to take over the ship, I finally figured out an encryption code. Use this.
I read a lot of people had beef about the mobile emitter being like, how'd they have a mobile emitter if Voyager didn't go to the Delta Quadrant? I'm like, it's really good tech for people who need decoys and holographic fighters. And the ship was already outfitted with what it called an emergency combat hologram.
But none of the other...
The
never
Confederacy
mind.
would totally do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that's a
Confederacy's
good
not going
point.
to have an emergency hospitality program.
Right. Here's your chair. Oops, I shot you. My bad.
Yeah, and also it's just, I don't know, it's sometimes a nice Easter egg is a nice Easter egg, and I just sort of
Sure.
don't look a gift horse in the mouth. But yeah, I really wanted to mention though that I love the interactions between the Borg Queen and Jurati. I think that they both do such an incredible job. I love it. I don't know. I mean, it's creepy. It's nuanced. It's different than what we've seen in a good way, in my opinion. And I really love it.
So my favorite thing about the scene, honestly, was besides the line "Welcome to the world's biggest paperweight." My favorite thing in this whole scene was the fact that Jurati was smart. I like it when our protagonists are very smart. She locked out the Borg Queen, cool, but she's in your head. So if you'd memorize the code, she'd just scrape it out of your brain. Oh, so I didn't bother to memorize it. I just put it somewhere you can't get it. Fuck you. That's smart. I like Jurati as a character, and I like when the writers make her very smart.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I love about Jurati the most, is that she is very awkward and struggles here and there and doesn't quite get social cues, and it reminds me a lot of me in some ways. But she, when it comes down to it, she's a cyberneticist for a reason. She's not stupid, and when she just has these really wonderful moments of, by the way, fuck you.
At the Daystrom
I love that.
Of all places, right? Like, she's not just a cyberneticist, she's one of the best.
She's like the cyberneticist at this point. So I don't know. I love that about her. I love that when it comes down to it, she's got sass and she's got brains, and she will use them. And I love that.
Perfect choice for the new Borg Queen.
Yep. So then our Elnor kills a couple drones with their own weapons, which was great. I love seeing Elnor kick some ass. Okay.
Yeah, I missed that a lot this season. I'm glad we got to get some
and of all the weapons he could pick, we're at that part.
Not yet.
Right?
That's later.
Okay, no,
almost, but I will scream about it. Don't worry.
Yep.
Outside back there, we see Raffi shooting with a disruptor pistol into the Borg army that she brought. Her and Seven argue a little bit, which was great. That they need to stop seeing these mercenaries as people; they're Borg. A point that I made earlier in this conversation. So it's fun seeing Seven's flip-flop on whether to treat Borg as Borg or Borg as people. Because remember, just a couple episodes, she was talking about how much it sucks to be mistreated for having been Borg. But here, when they're Borg, it's just, no. Just kill them, they're Borg, they're not people.
Well, it wasn't that a whole part of her arc in the first season was advocating for the XBs?
Yeah, and that's why I think the difference...
and that's the distinction, is these are linked to the collective baddies.
She knows how dangerous they are because she's been one. And so there's a difference to me between, like, I'm not one anymore and I would like to be treated like a person, please, and like, oh, we're being chased by 30 drones. Oh, fuck. And like, it makes sense to me that she would still hold that kind of resentment because she was raised by them. But I mean, they like that, she knows how evil they are because, like, hello, hi, been there, done that, thanks. And so I think it makes a lot of sense that, she advocates for the XBs, but still
merciless when it comes to the Borg itself.
Yeah, it scares her. She there are times that she has wanted that back and it scares her, and I don't blame her at all.
No, I totally agree. It makes perfect sense for her character. It's just interesting seeing her do the flip, right? Because just very recently we were seeing her be like, treat the Borg better, treat them more humanely, but not Borg, just ex-Borg. Yeah. All right. So then one of the mercenaries, the mercs, throws out a flashbang, and it goes off very close to Picard himself. He pulls up his hands to cover it, but it kind of throws us into a flashback, which is funny coming from a flash bang. I hope that was an intentional joke by the writers, but who knows?
I mean, probably. Somebody probably went, nice. I guarantee you that happened.
So we cut to back in Picard's childhood. They are just hanging out in like a salon. And Picard is asking Yvette if she wants to play another game. Maurice kind of makes fun of the fact that he's playing games with his mother. It seems a little bit like shitty dad stuff again. Yeah. Calling him he's a curmudgeon.
I love that word.
Yeah. And then Picard calls him one, or Jean-Luc calls him one too. And they have a little bit of a tit for tat on it. It's a pretty funny scene. It's great. Maurice is definitely a curmudgeon. It's the right word for him.
Did you see the ship in between the lemonade glass and the pitcher?
Which one? There were 3.
Okay, so the one that I want to focus on and talk about was the NX-01 refit that we were supposed to get if there was a 5th season of Enterprise. They basically just added a Constitution class looking secondary hull to the existing NX-01 body. So what I like about that is they canonized what was going to be the plan for that series if it hadn't gotten canceled. So it happened anyway, basically, is what they're saying, which would have been I think it's a great design evolution between the NX-01 to the what would then become the Constitution class.
No, it's the Columbia class.
The Columbia, the thing with the big ass bulb, the one that was the past year in
No, that's
All
Olympic
Good Things.
class.
That's Olympic. Okay, which one's the?
The NX refit is called the Columbia class.
Oh, okay. So right, they
Yeah.
changed the class when they did the.
Yeah, because it was
Wait a
part of the
minute.
Federation at that point.
Okay, I don't know why they would. Okay, but yeah, and in any case, I like that Easter egg to show this still happened, and I thought it was cool. It was a nice looking.
It looked great.
Display, yeah.
And they had a
It wasn't
Miranda
the
up there
only-
too.
Yeah, that it wasn't the only ship there either. Like Dag just said, there was a nice Miranda model. It was actually like the Reliant specifically with the roll bar, so neat there.
Yep.
But more interesting, I thought, was the fact that there was a Promelian battle cruiser in a bottle. Which
Which
is it-
battle cruiser?
Promelian battle cruiser?
Oh,
It's from an
Promelian.
episode of TNG.
from what is it?
Booby Trap.
Yeah, the one where Picard has to take the helm and pilot the Enterprise using the
Yes.
gravity around the asteroid.
Yeah.
Now,
It's a
why would
great-
they have a Promelian ship?
I'll tell you. I'll tell you
here?
why. So, at one point in that episode, he's talking about how didn't anybody build ships in bottles as a kid? And it's in Booby Trap that he says it.
Mhm.
And
Ah,
at some point,
jeez.
yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
jeez. That's
Oh.
that's like a 4D reference right there.
I love
Not
that.
bad.
That's
No,
also
you-
coincidentally
you
where
heard
one
it
of my
here
favorite
first,
bloopers
everybody.
comes from.
Sorry, what
Yeah.
was that, Suzanne?
I was talking about that's also the episode where one of my favorite bloopers comes from.
Oh, which one?
Oh,
This
yes.
is where when he says, "Didn't anyone make ships in bottles when they were boys?" And Michael Dorn is supposed to say, what does he say in the episode? He says, "I never played with toys," but he
toys.
says, "I never played with boys," and they all fucking lose it because he has to stop and just go. It's amazing. That's one of my it's one of my favorite bloopers I've had. Yeah. Anyway.
I never played
random.
with boy.
Wow.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was.
Wow.
Christ, it was so funny. Any Worf bloopers are absolutely
Yes.
stellar.
Michael Dorn
hilarious.
can't keep a straight face for these things, so.
Nope.
Oh, it's so good.
Maybe we'll get Captain Worf after Picard season 3, huh?
God, I would pay money.
Can you imagine what Worf's gonna look like for season 3? Like, I can't wait.
Oh God, I can't wait for the Trek beards to
Getting back to the
scream and
season
yell.
2
about-
review.
Okay.
We're
back to
here.
what we have.
We're
Yeah.
doing
Well,
it.
Yeah. All right, so we get this
Back
neat
to
bit.
Beyond Curmudgeon podcast.
Back to being in the discussion. Maurice notes that John Luke is smart, but he's bored, too much time on his hands, and then he talks kind of belittlingly to Yvette, saying that she seems much more present and no incidents recently. It's a little weird the tone he uses for it, but he
Yeah.
kind of optimistically muses that maybe things are getting better. This whole time, Yvette is just staring at him like stone cold, like doesn't give a fuck what he's saying. And then John Luke asks to play a game, and Yvette suggests hide and seek, which leads to the scenes that we saw inside of Picard's mindscape. So we're getting this story of what happened on that day out of order and only from Picard's perspective, from John Luke's perspective. So unreliable narrator, I think, is definitely a thing to think of here. Like, we don't know exactly what bits are true and what aren't, but we are at least getting to piece together the story of that day. Snap back to the present of 2024. Seven and Talon are shooting back at the Borg mercenaries. Talon is just laying down fire, which is impressive. That rifle is pretty sweet. And then Rios takes a bullet to the shoulder while covering Teresa and Ricardo. Picard has Talon beam them out and then turn it off afterwards so that they can't come back. Again, smart, because Picard knows that Rios is going to want to rush back as soon as they're safe, and he's really in a great place to fight.
He's going to get himself killed and everyone else.
Honestly, the biggest thing here is if he had a phaser, he might still be some use back there, but he's not only injured, but he's unarmed. So no point in having you around.
Yeah, there's
bro.
absolutely no point at that point. So
Not
True.
to say that Rios is not capable of handling himself in a fist fight, but better not to be.
maybe not with like 30 Borg drones with big guns. Maybe, perhaps.
Oh, but,
Yeah.
but apparently they're nerfed. They're you're supposed to be able to beat their asses now.
Want to know something?
Well, I
interesting?
mean, they still have guns, though. I mean, they still have guns and know how to use that gun.
Do you want to know
And
something
so-
interesting about the panel that access denied that Rios is trying to be back on?
Yeah.
Letter for letter, the Romulan language is translatable to English.
Is it?
It's just a
There you go.
substitution cipher. That's it. They just substitute one glyph for a letter.
For a character, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's directly translatable
How do you
It
know
also-
this?
because I can read
Why
it.
do you, why do you know
What
this?
do it say?
It says access
does it
denied, but it's
Oh,
it's
okay.
literally like access denied in English, and right below it is access denied in Romulan. And
That's incredible.
And the characters are character for character matches of what they
Like-
should be.
The C's that there are two of, right? When you look down below, the character that matches up with it, there are two of. Same thing with the
Mhm.
S's and so forth and so
Oh,
on.
nice. Okay.
Just a straight sub cipher. It's fun
Yeah.
stuff.
Yep.
So, okay. So Rios says he's going to return, and that's when he hits the buttons and finds out that he's been locked out. Rios has this real like pissed face on, which I think is pretty authentic. to the
Damn you,
character.
Picard.
Yeah, it's very authentic to the character.
Oh, for
Back at the chateau, Picard is telling them that Rios got shot and he'd only get himself killed if he stayed here. So Raffi says that they can't push forward against superior numbers. So Seven proposes that they split up and go around. Talon and Picard both look like, is she crazy? But she's right. When you're pinned down, what you're supposed to do is split up and come at them from a different angle, which makes sense. At that moment, the Borg stop firing, and their targeting lasers go out. And then a moment later, Soong walks out, or rather starts calling out to Picard. And then he steps out from like the vines in the vineyard. Very cool scene, very ominous. I love seeing Brent Spiner in this role of the evil fucking like baddie who has no chill at all about it, no regrets, it seems.
During this scene, I couldn't help but wonder how utterly strange is this to Jean-Luc. He's basically hearing the voice of and seeing the face of Data during this entire interaction. What would that be like? What do you guys think that would feel like to see and hear basically a friend you've known for so long? And you saw how long Picard was mourning the loss of Data. So he went through all of that entire thing, watched him die again, and then now he's like literally hearing and seeing that face.
Honestly,
Yeah, I mean, he also-
has seen so many of those faces. He just is probably
Yeah.
run of the mill for him. He's probably like, geez, it's been 6 months since I've seen Brent Spiner's face. Something's wrong.
So true. Oh my god. Because he went through the like season 1, they walked
Lore,
over the
B4.
Data, yep.
Oh lord, he's
Alton.
like, oh look, another one, sweet. Yeah,
Right,
no, and
yeah.
Alton as well in season 1, and so he's already just like, okay, cool, Data 2.0, all right, fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm at this point, he's just like, oh wow, he's really the evil one, cool, all right, but yeah.
It would just be weird.
No, it's
Me.
I think that of all the characters in Star Trek, besides maybe O'Brien, Picard probably has the most like trauma, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
all his experiences going back and forth with the Soong family are definitely up there.
Yep.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm just thinking like, I'm thinking about like the way that I reacted to it was just like watching the season and getting, is that Brent Spiner? I'm just like imagining like one of them
I
like,
would
looking
just-
out the window. Is that?
I would just love for Picard to lay into him and be like, look, because of you, in 100 years, some people are going to die, and the founder of our Federation is going to have to stop your descendant. Then, 200 years after that, you build an evil freaking robot that has to be stopped. 3 times that goes up against, guess
times.
who? Your buddies here, the Borg. And then guess what? Like 7 years after that, there's another one of you that hijacks my ship, tries to overthrow, just helps Romulus get over. Just, I hate you so much. And then your great I don't know how many grandsons tries to launch the end of the galaxy with a whole bunch of other robots he builds. So if I could just kill you right now, that would save everybody a ton of grief.
Your
feel like
family
Picard
is a
deserves,
menace.
he deserves like 1 free fight per peril. I feel it's sort of like in the service industry when you should really get 1 free fight per week. But yeah, no, he just needs to go to a gym and
The
punch
ultimate
some
irony: Picard is saved by Data, only to be killed by Data's great granddad.
shit. Yeah,
I know,
that sounds
right?
about right. Honestly, like if that were to happen, yeah, Star Trek. The end. Cool. That sounds about right.
This is very quickly becoming Star Wars. It's like the Soongs have ruined the galaxy.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
It's
The
so
Soongs-
small. The Soongs are a menace.
Lordy.
The Soongs may have had benefits too that we just don't know about, but yeah, they are problems. All right, so going back to the actual episode, we get this back and forth between Soong and Picard. Soong calls him a rogue variable in this experiment, which is a pretty interesting way to insult someone. They talk about Soong looking for a muddier path, that Picard's just going to end up dying running. And then Picard goes, hide and seek. Let's go hide in the house. Draw them in. Which makes sense when you have a superior military force. Bring them in closer where their advantage is limited, right? Makes pretty decent sense to bring him into the house. He knows the grounds a lot better.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's for sure his advantage. And I mean,
Home field. You
They-
should not lose home field advantage.
all right. But I mean, I and it's not really discussed a ton, and I don't know if they did or not. But in the year or so that they've been doing stuff before all this shit went haywire, I mean, you have to assume that Raffi and Seven and have been to the chateau and kind of maybe know a little bit of it at the very least, and might have a slight advantage there. That's just a silly little point, but
No, that makes sense to me.
It would make sense to me that they all kind of, I mean, Picard most of all, but they all sort of have an advantage there because they've been.
They spent a
Except
lot of
Talon.
time. They spent a lot of
Talon I
time
can
on the
expect him to
chateau.
fully-
Yeah, except Talon,
in
obviously,
season
yeah,
1.
but-
Yeah.
In season
Yeah.
1, the chateau was a holodeck program on La Serena. They spent a whole lot of time there.
At least his ready room was. I think they had
Mhm.
they had his his like study, I guess, as you know, so they would recognize
Yeah.
that more so. But they were also in it for a period of time in this season, weren't they? A little bit. So, like,
it
Or was
think
that
so.
just Agnes?
I mean, might have been between scenes kind of thing, which would
Yeah.
still make sense. But as far as we know, Seven spent a lot of time on her Fenris Ranger shuttle run duties. Raffi, I'm sure, has spent a lot of time at the chateau
Yeah.
because of how close she was to Picard. I can imagine Elnor's been there too.
yeah. So
because
each
they're on
group has
Earth.
an advantage. There's Picard and there's
Yeah.
Raffi, and it works. So
All right.
Okay,
So,
so
Seven and Raffi.
Seven and Raffi are breaking in one direction, and Picard and Talon are breaking into the house. One of the mercenaries starts shooting through or aiming through, so you can see their laser sights through holes in the walls or through parts of the glass in the mirror in the windows. They flatten themselves against the solid wall so that they can try and not be noticed. Works once, doesn't work the second time. Mercenary smashes through the glass, and we get this nice little melee fight with Seven and Raffi against one merc. He eventually ends
It
up
was a
pulling
good
a
fight.
knife.
it was
Yeah,
it was
well
such a
choreographed.
good fight. It was so
Mhm.
good. I mean, it was dark, and I know there
Yep.
was I saw a couple complaints about that, but it was so cool. I love the stunt work in this episode.
Wait a minute. There were complaints about a fight at night in a chateau
I
with no
think
power.
I think I saw one person that was like, "Oh, I couldn't see anything." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit.
No
like,
shit. Dumbass.
Neither could they. That's the point." Like, I just,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
that was the whole point of the shot. But no, the stunt work was really cool.
Yeah.
And I just,
Great choreo, great-
I love watching Seven and Raffi kick ass.
Yes.
I want a whole season of them just fucking shit up. But space girlfriends going into fights, 2 phasers. I love it. I love them. I will not be shutting up about them this episode. I apologize in advance. You're
Yeah,
getting
no.
full lesbian. Like I'm going full like. Thank God, finally. Like
Yeah.
like I said, I thought the choreography was great for it. It seemed very realistic. The way that they fought made sense. Big burly bro hitting them. You see their reactions to the hits. It's not like they're just shrugging it off unrealistically. And it took both of them working together to overpower the guy. Very good, very well done. I liked it a lot.
And that's another thing, because the drones are dumb, but they can still fight.
They're still
And
strong.
she's an ex-Borg, so she's got cybernetic enhancements. I mean, she's probably
Not at the
slightly
moment.
stronger than the average human. Plus,
No, not at the moment.
oh,
She
not at the
doesn't have
moment.
them.
My bad.
Yeah.
My bad. Just kidding.
Well, when you think about it, besides species 8472, we have not seen many species or people being able to go melee on the Borg. You've got Data.
Worf.
We've seen Worf do it.
Yeah.
And Cisco can do a can of whoop ass on anybody, so I'm sure he could.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Cisco boxing the Borg.
Hey, I'm just saying, that dude's taking out Klingons, Jim Hadar. He's got cans of whoop ass all on his utility belt. There's one for everybody. So yeah, I would think the Hirogen probably could too, but
I would think the
basically-
Jem'Hadar would be a pretty fun matchup too.
ooh, Jim Hadar in a board drone.
But imagine an assimilated Jem'Hadar. That's just
Nope.
a scary notion.
No, thank you.
Oh, no thanks.
Mm-mm.
No, thank
All right.
you.
So cutting back to Sung and Picard. So as they're running inside of the house, Picard suggests going to the tunnels beneath the house. And then he's like, wait, hold on, let me figure out where exactly the entrance was. Clearly, this is not a place that Picard visits as an adult. He's probably hasn't been there since the one time he went down there as a kid with his mom. It's not something he has many memories of. He doesn't know it super well. All this makes sense considering the trauma. So they head to this particular bookcase and pushes a button, shoves the thing, and down
I
they go.
love the secret
Well, that was
door.
that.
I love it.
That was Sung that found the door. I don't recall them
There
going
was a
through the
flashback of him remembering how to get.
bookcase.
Yeah,
Okay.
Picard had to remember it first so that they could do that, and then eventually he sees like the footprints and the dragging and the
Yeah.
But no, I
Some
love
bit comes later.
This is so in the flashbacks that we get of Picard's childhood, they're all in waistcoats and like tweed and 40s vibe because
Yeah.
apparently that was the 23rd century, which I love, or 24th rather. And
Early 24th.
Style
Early
is
24th.
cyclical, remember?
Picard-
no, style is cyclical. I'm
No, no,
not
I
like
just-
complaining about it at all because that's totally how life goes. But
I-
like I love it.
I was
And
just
this
like, Picard's childhood took place in the 1800s. I don't understand.
Yeah, no, it's like 1934. Like I really honestly adore this whole idea of like it being, because it is modern. Like some of the clothing they're wearing is more modern and you wouldn't see in that time, but the style, the costuming is wonderful. I love it very much.
his-
And I also love the secret door. I love the secret door in the chateau.
His dad was stated to be kind of a Luddite, eschewed technology, did not want Jean-Luc going up into the sky and all that other stuff. It would make
Didn't
sense.
allow a
that,
replicator
like-
on their household at all.
Right, so that clothing is like made clothing.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's true. Yeah, that would make sense. But I love it, and it would make sense also why they bought like an old house with old amenities and stuff like that, like a big old abandoned castle.
Oh, so it's been in
but
the family for forever, kind of thing.
Yeah, I adore it. I love it so much.
Well, even now there's some of that affinity for older things, older houses, older castles, or whatever it
It's
is.
me.
So
I want a creepy Victorian house that's like the whole house is a vibe check. I want like things that are like, you know what I mean? I want to look like the scary witch down the street, but I just bake cookies
no,
and talk
thank
about
you.
sci-fi. That's what I want to be. I want to be the everyone else thinks I'm the like scary lesbian old lady, but every like normal person, and it's like, oh yeah, no, she makes good cookies, and sometimes she'll talk about life with you if you want. I just think that'd be neat. But no, I want an old creepy house, and so watching this old creepy house is really fun. I'm assuming everything is sets. They're not are they filming on location at all? Is this like an actual? I don't
sure
know.
there is an actual location for it.
There is.
Yeah.
I mean, not for all. I mean, most of it is probably set work, but obviously, but like, I don't know anything about that, so that's not my wheelhouse. But I think that it's a really cool, creepy old house, and I think whoever designed some of the sets for the creepy old house is a genius.
Mhm.
All right, so cutting back, we get this scene where Picard, in his memories, like, remembers exactly where Yvette showed him how to get down there, and that's what guides them in the reality. So back in the present, Sung starts calling out for him inside of the house. We start hearing him like taunting him, and down they go down the bookcase hole and closes the door behind him. Now we cut back to another flashback. This time it's John Wick looking for his mom in the tunnels. The game is no longer fun. And then back to the present. This back and forth jumping and getting bits of the story together as we go. It's a little disorienting at times, but they do a good job of at least making it clear that like which is which just by the age of the characters. Like that at least makes it pretty clear.
Yeah, I want to say that the jumping back and forth and the not remembering certain things and the whole like, well, why doesn't he remember it happened, is very good. Sort of depicting. I mean, because I haven't actually been through it, but like sort of trauma therapy, if that makes sense. Like it just sort of it makes sense that there are bits and pieces that he doesn't remember from a horribly traumatic event. And it makes sense that it's being pieced together in this way where we experience it in that same way. Because that's a very real facet of PTSD, of any type of traumatic event, is losing details and also having flashbacks to those details because certain things trigger those details. I mean, it's really well done in my opinion. But
but would it take a traumatic event to, if he had only been there once, and there's tunnels, there's twists, turns. In my opinion, it wouldn't take a traumatic event to not remember where to go in a place like that, especially when it was one time.
Yes, but because it was one time, I think it's important that like it was one time, but that one time is where he remembers going down there, and that's why he remembers that door, because that was right before something really horrible happened. And sometimes those details are hard to remember, but once you're looking at them, and that's why he doesn't remember them until now, once you're looking at them and you experience them and you can touch them and feel them and move through that space physically instead of just in your brain, that makes sense to me. It's sort of like your brain like constructing your own house in a dream, but it's wonky and you can't really remember it. And that to me makes it would make a lot of sense that he doesn't remember any of it until he's faced with it, until he's looking at it again, and in the space. So yes, I can kind of see how it's a little far-fetched to think that he would know exactly the turns in the hallways. Right. But also it's Star Trek, and I kind of just think it's neat. Yes. So I have a slight beef with that, but it also kind of makes sense within the context. He
does love history, right? And he does like archaeology stuff. Maybe he's been down there a couple times since. It's just not a common thing, right? Like it is one of those things where he does need to like be like, where did I leave the keys, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I really think there's a non-zero amount of times that he's been down there. Sure. Between being a kid and being old and retired.
Certainly hasn't explored the whole thing. Like I don't think he's got a map anywhere for the whole area because it's probably huge. But yeah. All right. So down there, speaking of the brain, Susie, Talon realizes that wait a second, I saw this in your brain. This is a real place now. So she starts putting things together at that moment too, which is really neat. And then she starts asking Picard about what happened down here. He tells about the French resistance hidden munitions down here during World War II. So she starts pointing out that that's not what I meant. I meant the memories that we saw. The setting's cool, but what's the relevance to your memories down here? And that's when Picard and then Talon calls us a very dangerous playground, which is a very good point, because going down here as a kid would be terrifying. The fact that he walked over like a plank over a well and the wood gave way is terrifying.
Yeah, that's
on him. Why would you walk over a well?
Well, he was like 8.
That's a thing that I was thinking about, was like when he gets there in the 2024 and he sees that place, I was totally thinking that he was going to step in that spot so there'd already be a hole so that younger him would avoid that hole. I totally thought that was going to happen.
Butterflies.
Yeah, butterflies.
Right.
But we're in the Confederate timeline.
Butterflies being what they are.
There is no Confederate timeline.
This is before any of the alternate timelines.
Oh, duh. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I get that all the time. Constantly, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just going through right. I am very much like
I'm
Seven
just
and
here to watch.
Raffi are in love, and I like ignore almost everything else. Like I literally, there was one point where the conversation just went on too long, and I just straight up like skipped it. It's like, cool, Seven and Raffi, let's go. Like I'm genuinely there's some of it where I'm like I'm having to be reminded as we're speaking about like, oh yeah, we're in this timeline. Oh yeah, that happened, because I don't. This is all that I've been watching. This
We
season.
get the nice little reminder from the dad that there are 1,000 ways to die down there in the tunnels. And then we get more in the flashback with like Maurice running down to the tunnels, calling after his wife and son. And
So I have to say, I don't know where you are because the pictures that I'm using are not following the discussion you're having. Like you're talking about Maurice, and I'm like, I don't know where Maurice is.
it was just it was like a couple
the
seconds when
images
he
here.
like runs down the same
It was.
spot.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, no, he does. I don't know if that happens. Does it happen here or does it happen later? I thought it happened,
here.
a little bit later.
One
I don't know. I
image.
can't remember.
It
But,
happens at some point.
Okay.
But
I
yeah,
got,
no, he,
I got an image in the middle of the sea of blue. Okay.
Okay, cool. What was I going to talk? Oh, so I wanted to go back briefly to the whole idea of him saying like there've been no incidents lately, you know, and all that stuff, and him like Picard wrestling with his father. Was his father good or weird or you know? I have been told that my whole life I have been mentally ill since forever, and I feel like every time I have a decent time with things, I've you know, and we've gotten better about it, but my parents will go, you know, oh well, you haven't, you know, you've been doing well lately, everything okay, how's it going, you know, and it's very sort of like we don't want to say anything to like make it worse, but you seem to not be quite as nuts lately, and it's just like, wow, thanks, appreciate that.
Right.
Really,
Thanks, guys.
really good, and it always that always precedes a huge spiral every single time, and so like it's, you know, it's the masking and whatnot, and people going, you seem like you're doing better, have you lost weight, type of thing. And so like I think that Maurice is very much the sort of like doesn't want to deal with it and doesn't know how to deal with it, loves her but not really in the way that she needs, and loves both of them but not in the way that they need, and sort of dismisses her as being silly or just crazy or whatever, which to me in the 24th century it's like, can we maybe get over that? But it's hearing that was upsetting, because I was just sitting there like, yeah, that's, you suck.
Well, as someone who has dealt with crazy on more than one occasion, I can tell you, it can get kind of exacerbating.
Oh my God, believe me.
You kind of exasperating. Yeah, you kind of get to where it's like, I'm so done with this. I'm worn out. And everything else.
No, I have that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see why he's not in a good mood about it, because.
Yeah.
Man.
It's a lot. I deal with that as well. That's one of my main things. So that's, yeah, it is a lot. And I think that I just wish that the language would change, I guess, around it. And I think that's the whole point of this anyway. But just that like he's trying, but it's still not where it needs to be. And it's more disdain and more like he's bored, he doesn't have anything to do, and kind of like judging her parenting and judging the, you know, and then saying, oh well, you seem to be doing well. It's like, shut the fuck up, Maurice. I feel like it shows the dysfunction and the good in both of them, and I like that about it.
Just from things that I remember reading people complaining about this scene, and just in general about how Maurice treats Yvette. One of the things people complain about is, where is Robert in all of this? Where is the other brother? Well, if you remember, it doesn't matter, because he's not relevant to the story, but they actually mentioned that he's off to school in like the first episode, or in the first flashback, technically.
Right.
He's gone. So that's why he's not in this scenes, people. That's not a big deal.
There are several cases, and I'll bring one up later when we get to it, where the writers are real sharp on this stuff, but I'll hold that for the part later that I'm going to talk about.
Well, the bigger of the two is this one, and this is the last one. It's just 2 points. But the bigger one is, why isn't she getting help from a professional, right? Like, why isn't she in a mental hospital or some people treating her to help her, right? Well, one of the points that Picard mentions in the previous episode is that she wouldn't accept help. She wouldn't see anyone, right? The Federation has like a concept of bodily autonomy. If a person doesn't want help, you can't really force them to go to a doctor, right? And in this case, not only does Yvette seem to not want help, I don't know if Maurice would even be like amenable to taking her to help, right? Because we know that he's anti-technology, we know he's anti-modern things. He wants to live things the good old-fashioned way kind of guy. So the good old-fashioned way was you figure it out, you live with it at home, you shut up and you deal with it.
Suck it up.
Yeah, suck it up,
kind of
buttercup.
mentality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that this is why Yvette lived her life this way, and it's not some sort of like major indictment that Federation in the 23rd or 24th century isn't a utopia. She probably could have had help if she wanted it or would have accepted it. It's just this unique situation doesn't lend itself to that kind of like therapy or help.
Yeah, and
Remind
I also
me
think
again.
that. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say, remind me again, what's the name of the stuff that I haven't heard it in a while, but there was a time, it was a year or so ago, where people were like they'd have a child that was sick or dying or in the hospital or something like that, and they would rub some kind of ointment on like their temple or their forehead, and that was supposed to cure everything.
Essential oils?
Yeah, essential oils. That Maurice comes off as like, well, let
He
me just open my
does.
drawer of essential oils,
He
and
does. He comes off
know,
as like a
put a little of
holistic
this
thing.
on your wrist, and boom, Bob's your uncle, you're
So-
cured.
I have a small anecdote here that you might find funny. So there's a show on Apple Plus called Severance. It's really good. I recommend watching it for you guys. But there's a character in it who's presented as being like a hyper hippie crazy, right?
Mhm.
To the point where when his wife is in labor with contractions 10 minutes apart, he starts hanging kelp in the birthing room
Not
because that's
kelp.
going, because it's going to make for better air for the baby's first breath or something.
I'm weak.
You have,
Yeah.
you have dilated to 10 centimeters. You may not
Yeah.
give birth.
No, the guy's truly crazy, right? But there's a moment there where another character shows up, and like he's like, "Well, quick, tell me one of your deep secrets, right? Because babies are drawn to new voids in air, and telling a secret creates a void, which will give it a healthier birth and will speed up labor." Yeah, so there are people out there in the world who believe crazy shit like this guy, and I'm
Yes.
sure that Maurice is probably the 24th century equivalent of it. So
Yeah, I mean there are people that like live like it's the 1800s that get on like fun YouTube videos of and
His
I got to
ancestor
judge
was an
those people at all,
anti-masker.
but stop. Anyway, that
Tell
got
me I'm wrong. Go ahead and tell me I'm
No,
wrong, and I'll turn
yeah.
off my camera feed.
But no, I mean, and there are like certain like I don't know. I mean, it's just he does seem very much the type of like just sort of holistic, just like we don't need technology, and that does happen. It is
What a
But-
dingbat.
right, but I feel like people forget that even in a utopian future, there are gonna be people who make mistakes. Like there are gonna be, there might have been this way that this could be helped, but they just didn't think of it, or they didn't remember to do it. They didn't call, they didn't go. I mean, they can't. It's not like it's not like a utopian future necessarily means everybody's happy all the time. And so, even if he had been willing to get her help, I don't think that at this stage of her illness she would have voluntarily taken that help. And so it's one of those things where I feel like people phrase like, oh, well, why didn't they just mental hospital? First of all, mental hospitals are still sometimes very bad now, and probably will be very bad then, because mental health is one of those things that is very, very difficult to diagnose, to treat, to help with. It's not all black and white, and it's all completely psychological. Versus,
let's remember that TOS episode, right, with Garth of Izar, whom gods destroy, right? They talk about like in the entirety of the Federation, there's a very small number of people who are criminally insane and like truly dangerous, and they're all kept in this one facility where they are treated and helped, and the goal is to actually save them. Cool. So that's like 100 years before Picard. So we know that the Federation's ideology definitely aligns with helping people, everyone, right? But if Yvette has done nothing criminal, she's never hurt anyone to this point, she has a mental disability or disorder, and she refuses treatment and help, it would be dystopian if the state took her and forced her to receive treatment that she doesn't want, right?
Yeah.
Especially if her husband or her family aren't somehow asking for that assistance. And I don't think Maurice is the type to ask for help.
No, I don't either. And I also wanted to, I mean, because there are places here now that will, if the child is a minor and the parent signs the right documents, that there are people that will come in the middle of the night and kidnap you.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a
Jesus.
thing that still happens. I know people that's happened to.
What the?
Yeah, it's completely legal. It is completely legal for if your parents think that you are a danger to yourself or your therapist, for example, and your parents sign a piece of paper, the right waiver, there are medical professionals that can come to their house in the middle of the night or whenever and kidnap this person
Oh, screw that.
without
man.
telling them, and it's perfectly fine. So I mean that still happens, so to me that forced help is not always the answer. And so for people saying that, and so that clearly, or at least in the Federation ideal of that time,
Right,
they
because
had moved past the whole forced help thing. I'm not saying that people shouldn't seek help.
it's a lot easier to
saying that,
apprehend
but-
someone while they're sleeping than, because I tell you what, I feel so much as a bump while I'm sleeping, and their forearms and elbows getting thrown around.
Oh yeah, no,
It-
at that
it's
point you
just-
are a danger because you're like, I'm being kidnapped currently.
Yeah,
I'm going to yell.
I just now
Like-
woke up and there's people grabbed me. So
Yeah.
suddenly I'm gonna start fighting like Batman and hurt people.
Yeah, and so it's
I think that's a bad idea.
It's understandable in some cases why some people choose not to receive help. It's understandable there, because that's it could be built up in your head. It can be, oh, everybody's against me. I know I have a lot of
Mhm.
people in my family that are bipolar. That's a big thing of like everyone's against me, no one likes me, everybody's against me, everybody wants to like lock me away or whatever. And so that's a very common thing. That's a very common thought. And so it's rough territory, definitely. But yeah. It makes sense as to why that turns into this whole conspiracy thing of like everybody's against me and wants to lock me up and stuff like that. So
Okay, so continuing on, we get to this fun bit where Raffi and Seven are together again. Raffi is binding up Seven's wound from when she got slashed while fighting that Merc Borg. Seven starts actually giving orders, like starts setting things up, like starts planning things out very captain-like. And Raffi literally suggests that you should have been a captain, you should be in Starfleet, essentially. And Seven says that she tried after Voyager arrived back from the Delta Quadrant, but rejected by Starfleet because she was former Borg. Janeway, went to bat for me and threatened to resign, but I told her not to go on with that. And yeah.
hey, where's
that's
the
her
admiral that
explanation.
made that decision? I just want to talk.
Yeah, just want to talk.
Just
That's
want to
it.
talk. Just a little conversation, little transporter ride to his home. But like,
There's got to be.
I'm upset. And as a Janeway stan first and foremost, and a Seven stan as well, hearing that Janeway threatened to resign for. Okay, Queen. It's so upsetting. And I kind of assumed that was the case. I mean, in my own headcanon was just basically like she tried, and they said nope. And then she moved on and said, okay, I'll do better. I'll do good elsewhere,
Yeah.
Is she? Well, okay. Let me think. So, maybe, just maybe, and hear me out, that might make a little sense, because at that point, I believe Starfleet's probably already spooked about any synthetic life form or anything close to resembling that, especially someone who was Borg.
This is before the Mars uprising.
I know that. Yes, I get
but
that.
it's not before
but-
Rule 359 either.
No,
Is it?
that's the
Yeah.
big.
No, it's after.
It's
Well,
also
what I'm-
after the Dominion War, where infiltrators were a real fear.
Well, what I'm getting at is, at this point, were they possibly thinking about Data and all the times that he's gone amok, and he basically single-handedly captured a Galaxy-class starship on his own. Starfleet has seen from lore, Data, and B4 that if gone wrong, there's a lot of damage they can do. Like they pretty much become unstoppable. So they've had these instances where these Soong type androids look at the mission on Baku when Data went all nuts. Look at Brothers when he took over the Enterprise. So there's all these instances there, and now they've got a former Borg drone. They're probably thinking, Data and his brothers have given us all kinds of hell. We might have to just pass on this ex-Borg.
For all we know, the admiral that made the choice could have been Cisco, somebody with a real axe to grind against the Borg, right? Somebody who has lost real trauma, real things.
Cisco's on vacation in the...
We don't know if he ever came back. We don't know if he ever came back. He might have come back or something, and it just hasn't come up yet because we haven't had, Deep Space Nine version 2 yet.
I mean, you could argue that any admiral, any captain, any lieutenant, anybody in Starfleet lost somebody, and has experienced trauma there. I think that I don't necessarily fault them for the choice to keep her out. I think that it makes sense, as rough as it is, and I think that I wish that they had taken Janeway's word, because Janeway got an entire ship of people back from the fucking Delta Quadrant and might know what she's talking about, for God's sake. But at the same time, it makes sense. What I don't like is that, later in the same breath, with 20 years later, they're now putting Borg tech in ships, and don't think maybe we should consult the ex-Borg that got back from the Delta Quadrant. Perhaps. And I just, everybody looks at her weird, but they can put it in starships. They can take that from the Borg and use it and be okay with it. But you're telling me you're gonna look at an individual and just go, no.
Suzanne, let me play the devil's advocate on this one, right?
Okay.
How comfortable would you be with driving like a Volkswagen car in the 50s? It's a car.
Yeah.
It gets you from A to B. How comfortable would you be hanging out with a Nazi in the 50s? See the point? So my defense.
I like the Borg or Nazis thing. I like that. That's where we're going. No, you're right. I'm not making fun of you. I just think it's.
That was great.
That was where my head went. Just very. Oh God, no, you're right.
Listen, I want 7
I applaud you, Renzo.
I want 7 of 9 Starfleet more than anyone, right? I think she's amazing. She's one of my favorite characters in all of Trek.
Give
right?
her a ship.
But I get where the Admiralty would be scared with, like, okay, so we knew Picard. Picard had been in Starfleet. He was a respected captain. He got assimilated for like a day, and look at the damage he caused. This chick was in the Borg for 20 years, and she just wants to join. Are you kidding? Right? Like, they are probably terrified. They don't know what crime she committed while Borg. They don't know.
Sense. Fully. It makes sense.
I get
she
it.
Probably.
It sucks. It sucks, but that doesn't mean it doesn't make sense.
I just love that we got that little tidbit of Janeway going to bat for her, and Janeway. It's confirmed that Janeway wanted Seven in Starfleet and was willing to resign for it. And I also
Janeway.
It's so Janeway, and I love it. And it's just I'll take the crumbs that I can get with Janeway because I miss her. But
we'll get more in Prodigy. Don't worry.
I know, but it's gonna be a while anyway.
All right, so season ends with. Just Raffi again musing that you would have made a great captain, and when they get out of this predicament, and then Seven goes, "We're not getting out of this predicament, right? We're not going to get out of it, right?" And then Raffi's like, "Yeah, you're right." And then they break off running into the vineyards, which they've been to before, and these mercs don't know anything about. And here's another Big J beef coming, I'm sure. So come on, lay it on me.
Okay, so this is another layer of beef to the one I had earlier, that whether you know the terrain or not, you're just gonna run out there, and I don't like it.
So there's shitty line of sight, right? Like the vineyards themselves going to block a lot of line of sight. It is pitch black. No one seems to be wearing night vision anything, right? They don't have Borg eyepieces to let them see in the dark. They've got no better options is probably how they saw it, though. It was probably like, well, either we sit here and wait till we run out of time and the Queen takes off from the ship, or we try. We probably die, but we try. Yeah. That's probably where they fell on it.
My thing is that, like, I feel like in the past, Borg drones have been, like, comically slow. And I think that's kind of the point of, like, the robot movement and they're kind of pathetic. And it's not that they're not dangerous, because they are, but they also die in far larger numbers because they're drones. They're all worker bees. that just is like, okay, that one died, that one did. They're not necessarily supposed to be super fast individually and
It's
super,
just numbers. They drown you with numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And so, they don't have a ton here. I feel, they have enough. And they're also sort of like half, assimilated. As
For a race that's looking for perfection, they're awfully damn stupid when it comes to the drones.
They're a resource, right? Like, if they're bullets to the Borg Queen, a soldier with an unlimited ammo supply in a video game doesn't count as bullets. He just shoots. The drones to the Queen are bullets, and she's got trillions of them. She doesn't care.
Yeah, 100%. I fully believe that. But I mean, yeah, it's. I like the scene, but not necessarily like the whole idea of like, oh, they're gonna be fine running through a bunch of that's. But like, yeah, at this point they're like, okay, well, we have about 5 minutes until Agnes takes the damn ship. We should probably just fucking run and find out. Because I mean, there's nothing else they can do. If they stay there, yeah, they might live, but the future's screwed. They're not gonna get home. So might as well just make a run for it. Should one of them maybe have gotten grazed once or twice? Yeah, probably. But like,
or tripped on a vine, something.
Or tripped on a vine and had like a moment. I don't know. But I think it kind of makes sense that Seven's like, well, time to go.
I did like the bit though where they both bum rushed one of the mercs and like slashed him up, which I thought was pretty good.
You could say they murked him.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
All right. So going back,
I've been waiting on that one for like 20 minutes. Anyway, continue.
Going back to La Sirena, we've got Eleanor searching the weapons lockers, which I think we all liked as a scene. He's got pistols. Hold on, what's in the next one? Ooh, rifles. Yeah, let's check the next one. Yay, knives.
I love him. I miss Eleanor a lot. I think it's because Eleanor to me is very much like sort of autistic coded, I guess, maybe a little tiny bit, and I relate to him a lot, and I miss him, and I love that he's just like, I'm gonna use the weapon that I'm comfortable with, and
why was there
I can see that. I can see the coding there, right? Like the whole like the absolute candor thing, that could definitely be seen as like autism coding.
And I don't know, I mean, I don't think it's intentional at all. I just think that that's probably why so many autistic Star Trek fans relate to him and relate to Seven as well, because she was pulled out of, I mean, she almost, to me, makes me think of like, I was diagnosed super late, and so she was pulled out of the collective in her 20s and told, here's how to be a person again, congratulations, have fun. And so I think that's why a lot of neurotypical, or rather neurodivergent fans of Trek relate to both of them so much. Seven for me especially, but I miss Eleanor. I love him. I love Eleanor.
You were gonna say something there, Dag? Looked like you were holding something in. No? Okay. All right. So you asked a question though, Big J, about where did he find a sword?
Yeah, why is the sword there?
I'm sure the Confederation is also likes murdering people with knives and brutally and bluntly.
Come on, Renzo.
Torture. Come on.
I told you my goodwill bank has already walked in this episode the negative. You're asking for a stretch there.
They brought Eleanor back so he could find a sword, Jay. Just
I know.
Give us the sword.
Fine, Dag.
Jay.
Yeah.
You don't behead Vulcan ambassadors with a phaser rifle.
There it is. Although that's La Sirena, so like why would Rios have a
because this Confederate ship was literally fighting a battle over Vulcan.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That tracks.
Right,
and also they brought back Eleanor, let him have a sword.
Yeah.
It's Star Trek.
I'll give you that one. I don't like it, but I'll give you that one.
So much beef today. Okay, so
it's like a Wendy's buffet here. Where's the beef?
Right, beef sandwich you can't even get your mouth around.
Going back to Talon's apartment, we've got Rios attempting to override the computer. He's chit-chatting with Teresa. They check in on Ricardo. He's asleep. He's confused. He was both terrified, but it was the coolest thing he'd ever seen. Yes, me too, kid. If it'd been me, I would have been in the same boat.
Very much me on any starship. If anybody put me on a starship, I'd be like absolutely like, holy shit, but I'd be running around going, ooh, lasers, that's very much, that's very true.
We get this cool scene then where Rios asks Teresa to extract the bullet, but she's like, I got no tools, what do you want me to use? And he's like, well, here, use this tricorder, this will work. And she comments about how he's got a device that's an entire ER that fits in a pocket, and she's being surrounded by miracles that she doesn't know anything about, but she's gonna have to let them all go and let him go, and then foreshadowing
scene. Huh?
Yeah,
I love
neat scene.
I love that the tricorder is like a Mickey Mouse tool that can do fucking everything. I just love it. It's like this is a
always
surprise
has
tool
been.
that
Oh
we
my
can
god!
use
No,
later.
you didn't.
It is. It's the Mickey Mouse tool of Star Trek, and I love that. And it's I mean, does it have a
always
little tractor beam that can pull the little bullet out of the? I
My
love
kids
that.
used to love that show.
I love
Yeah.
that. I loved that show. I loved that show when I was little. I loved it, and it's just, but like, it's like the magical tool that they get from the androids. And Raffi's like, you gotta think about it, you know. It's very much that, and I love that it's the surprise tool that we can use later. I just think if anything goes wrong, fuck it, tricorder. Ship blow up, tricorder. It'll make it again. Who knows? I just think it's hilarious.
Did Renzo freeze up? Yeah,
I mean,
he did.
Did he? Oh, I was like, what did I say? What have I
Just,
done?
right.
It's
I think it's
the perfect smile right now. It
It
looks
is.
great.
I am the host. It just told me
Great.
I am the host now.
Oh god.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Game
Now
over.
we're definitely
No.
in trouble.
That's not good. Wait.
It's not.
Like, okay, wait. is
I don't know what these
because
buttons do.
This is
It's
so
okay.
funny.
That's
This
okay.
is wonderful. This needs to be in the beginning of the.
Yeah, I thought he was like so lost in thought that
Oh, he's
his
okay.
brain lock up.
And
said
There he
he's
is.
I
back.
am the captain now. I was very
Sorry.
rich. It told me I
Yes.
was the host, man.
Suzanne's now the host. She's in charge.
No, thank God, not anymore. God, no. Don't trust me with computers.
Sorry, internet issues. You know how it is.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Did
No,
you
it
guys
was funny.
pause?
What's that?
Did you guys pause or still?
Hell
go?
no.
No, we
is
just
a
kept chatting.
podcast. We go with
Good.
that stuff.
I was waiting for
You-
you to speak.
You left and
Yeah.
came back
Something wrong.
before I even had the opportunity to message you to see if you were okay or if the power was out.
No, you're
It was a
good.
fast reboot.
It's a good router. Whatever. Anyways, where were? Oh, right, the tricorder. Tricorders
Tricorder.
are always been like the multi-tool of Star Trek. They do everything. And then
Swiss
and then
Army
it's got a little built-in tiny little tractor beam to pull out a bullet. Totally tracks with me, right? Like we saw.
Tracks hot.
Okay,
we saw
Why-
build-sized
why would you
thing.
use a primitive tractor beam when you could just lock onto the bullet and beam it out?
I don't know. We've never seen a transporter that small, but we have seen.
We have.
like a.
Micro transporters on a
Discovery.
TR-116, yo,
Yeah,
Oh, that's
remember?
and it
Fair.
and it
Yeah.
specifically worked on bullets. So
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
totally adapt a transporter for projectile extraction.
No,
Yeah,
tractor
no,
beam's
that-
cooler.
That works for me too. But yeah, tractor beam probably hurts a lot more than just beaming it out. So probably a smarter bet, anyways.
So it went in this way. We're gonna have to tractor it out through the other angle, but there's not a hole at the other angle. Don't worry, it's fine.
There will be, but it's very
There
much like
will be.
honestly after everything that he put Teresa through, like yeah, you can endure this.
There will
We're going
be.
with tractor beam.
That sounds like something the EMH would say to Tom Paris. There will be. Click.
It's very true. Don't worry. Oh
All
lord.
right, so cut back to Chateau Picard. Sung and his men are searching the halls. He's looking around, and that's when he realizes the whole bookcase is a
Mhm.
door thing. Because Sung is actually a pretty smart guy. He pushes it aside. His men go down in there. We get back to some more memories of Picard playing hide and seek.
Well, in all honesty, it's always the bookcase. It's always the
know.
bookcase.
But
If
it's
there's
cool.
I
hidden
played
passage
Clue. I
somewhere-
know how this works.
I've seen Batman back in the '60s. It's the bookcase.
I actually have a good friend whose basement is actually hidden behind a bookcase as well.
See,
Yeah,
Stop
no,
it.
it is. It's really cool. It's used as a cigar lounge, whatever, right? But like
Mhm.
down there is just like behind a bookcase. It's really nice.
I love that. No, I mean to me it reads as like hidden smoking room with like portraits on the wall and fun lighting, and you can like it's
the man cave.
There's a
I
big screen
live-
down. Yeah, it's more of a man cave than anything else. to
Where
be
you go
honest,
when you
but-
don't want to do chores. Wife's looking for you. Man
It's like,
cave.
no, I'm at the store. And very much, yeah. I for sure want like a secret room in my. I want it behind the bar though. I feel like I'd put it behind the bar or something like that. But somebody had like a fake fridge. I think I saw one time. There was one where it's a fake fridge and there's this like tunnel with lights that looks like a portal. And it goes into a man cave with like 2 flat screens and like movie seats. It's awesome.
How the shit do you get a flat screen through a fridge?
Put the flat
I mean,
screen
I
in
think
first.
there's another entrance, but it's still dope. It's so
that's,
cool.
That's
I want a fridge
brilliant.
room.
Yep.
All right, so we get this neat scene where Yvette tells Picard to consider the exquisite light and then to ignore her coldness of a dying star, right? Which is pretty deep stuff. To remember the light, remember the inner light is essentially what I got out of it.
Yeah.
The 4 lights?
How many again?
5?
Yeah.
4.
All right.
Man, I can't tell you how much I still wish that he had killed Gul Madred and not Gul Dukat. Sorry.
I said
Yeah.
that to you. You stole that from me.
No, you said it to me, and I'm still dwelling on it.
Okay. All right. I still think that would have been a much better, better than Ducat, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then when we hear more of Maurice calling down, seeking them out, back in the present, he points to the spot in the board or in the on the grating, not the grating, the wood above the well where his foot got stuck, or will get stuck because it's in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So they keep looking around. They find this room that has
Should have
some
stomped it. Would have saved the future, man.
Butterflies.
butterflies.
I'm okay with
Yep.
butterflies. If he stomps it now, he doesn't fall into it later, which means the circumstances of his mother's death may have changed.
Maybe he
Well,
would have
yeah.
died instead. He would have gone deeper into the tunnels where Maurice couldn't find him, and then Picard dies, and
Hey. Hey, I didn't say the future would change for the better.
That's butterflies. All right. So they find this room that has some old German munitions boxes from when the house was being held by the Germans, or when the French resistance hid German ammo down there. Finds an old Luger, and that's a second later is when the Mercs and Sung start catching up to them, start shooting at them. He seems surprised when it runs out of ammo. So clearly Picard does not have much experience with firearms. He's very lucky that the thing wasn't rusted over, because it's kind of a humid part of France where they grow stuff, and then things would rust and powder
Yeah,
would go
it
bad.
seems to me like
but-
that feels a little weird that the gun would work. But I mean,
They
I
were
guess it's
packed in
you know.
straw and shit, so that'll help them
That's true.
some.
That's
but,
true.
But
It
lost
could absorb
count.
some of the moisture, but I will say that I don't know, there's something I really love about Star Trek using old weapons and stuff, because as much as I love the phaser rifles and the cool new phaser designs that are for Strange New Worlds, for example, as much as I love that, I love the old historical little tiny pistols. I think they're cute.
Picard
think
knows how
it-
to use a Tommy
Cute and
gun.
deadly.
Maybe not a handgun.
Right. I
Yeah,
think I
yeah.
lost count. Is this what I'm about to say? Is the second serving or third serving of beef?
This is the third serving of
This is
beef.
the third serving. Okay.
The third and
So,
final serving of beef.
Suddenly, I think so. There might be a fourth. I don't remember.
That's
Anyway,
optimistic of you, Suzanne. Very
Yeah, I was
optimistic.
gonna say.
So- quit picking on me. All right. So here's the thing. Picard takes this gun. One, it works. Two, he starts 360 no scoping these mercs out of nowhere.
That's a good point.
So starting with Insurrection, and especially Nemesis, his gratuitous one-shotting of these specially trained Riemann soldiers, I don't get it. In situations like this, Picard just turns into fucking Annie Oakley with a shotgun,
Well,
and now he's an expert marksman.
I will say that the one thing that threw me off was did he load the gun, or was the gun already loaded?
I think it was already loaded.
Because if it was packed, then bullshit. But second of all,
Right.
if we're going back to the drones being kind of dumb, we see in Star Trek a lot, them shooting at the drones and the drones just sort of moving forward because they eventually figure out that the phaser variance doesn't work or whatever it
Mhm.
happens to be. So it could be that these sort of poorly assimilated drones don't really don't hide because they kind of are being told go after them because there are so many of them, and so she knows that one of them will eventually get through. I don't know, but yeah, this is an old man with a gun that he's never used.
Well, so
360 no scoping military officers.
I don't know.
Like,
I think a Dixon Hill novel would have had a gun or two.
that's true. I mean,
well,
We saw him Tommy Gun Borg before. He knows what he's doing.
he's an admiral. He knows how to use a weapon and aim it
okay.
at a
How
thing.
this will be a question for historians. A fresh Luger, so Luger that's used current during World War II. How accurate of a weapon was it? Are we talking stormtrooper handgun accurate, or is
Well,
it
based on my experience playing Call of Duty, Lugers are quite good in short range. This is
Uh-huh.
only 10 yards tops across this
Mhm.
room. So, I mean, just from my COD experience, it seems it could probably work just fine.
Yeah.
The thing that surprised me about this scene, honestly, besides the fact that the bullets still work, that they hadn't gotten like too humid and too wet for the powder to still work,
Right.
is because the gun itself surviving doesn't surprise me much. If it's in like a packed box with some hay in it, a gun can do pretty well. The oils will dry out, it'll fire a few times, and it'll probably jam, which very well might be what happened. But
Which could be why he was surprised it ran out of ammo, because he wasn't Dixon Hill novels. And
Yeah, he's not
probably
used to
knew
actually having to do gun
about
maintenance in the holodeck.
firearms. Yeah. So
Well-
that that would make sense that it jammed, but
The whole whenever Picard just goes John McClane on people, that's when I check out. When it's happened a few times, and I just
only then.
I only.
Only- oh boy, it's a little,
You know what I'm saying?
I offer you no objections on this one. It is a little much, right? But
Yeah.
Picard has
Mhm.
always been an action captain. He's not Kirk, where he wants to beam down for every away team. But if there's a firefight, Picard has never shied away from them.
Yeah, that's true. And I also think it's one of those moments of like they have to show how close the drones are getting, and oh no,
In
he's fighting.
fact,
I mean,
remember when Picard got picked up by Madrid? He was on like a deep cover in like mission to get into the Cardassian space, right? Like
Mhm.
he's
Yeah,
gone
him
on
and Beverly and Worf.
special ops missions a few times.
Look
and
at
they make
the-
fun of it in lower decks too.
Look at the 4 movies. Picard's the action hero of the third act in every single movie. He takes out Soren hand to hand. He takes
Not
out the
really.
Borg Queen hand to hand. He takes out Ruafo hand to hand, and then he takes out Shinzon hand to hand. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's the superhero action figure of the last act of all the movies. And sure, he didn't really take out, Kirk got a lot of punches in Generations, and Picard launched the launcher, but he's still the action hero of the third act, fourth act, however many acts there
Yeah.
are. So
Or something.
You know.
Yeah, I get it. It's just gotten to be a little bit unbelievable.
I just want to superimpose the Home Alone line from the first Contact scene where he's like, "All right, Borg, I believe you, but my Tommy gun don't," and just that's when he blows away Ensign Lynch. Poor
Oh
Ensign.
boy. Poor guy.
Either way, I thought it was a pretty cool bit, and it shows that a lucky shot where he actually manages to disarm the rifle, or break the rifle, or damage the rifle of one of the Borg dudes. He still had a sidearm. He just pulls out a pistol again. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense from that perspective. It's just lucky of a shot.
Yeah,
All
a
right.
lot of Star Trek is about lucky, though. I mean, I don't know. At some point, I put away my beef just to be like, it's just peril. That's okay. Like they're just running from some shit. But I think probably the point of that was to show how close they were and how it's like we're in danger. But like it's a lot for a weapon that old, even at that time, to be in a box and loaded and fire a lot and be fine. And also Picard to hit that accurately. Yeah, it's a little far-fetched, but
All right, so cut back to La Sirena, and we've got Elnor fighting against more Borg drones, proto-drones, and he's kicking some ass. He's more than holding his own. Jurati Queen is like still taunting him and calling out to him about how you can't hide forever, and his response is, "Who said I was hiding?" He shuts some doors, and that's when he realizes that Raffi and Seven are sneaking onto the ship, and Raffi loses her shit at it. She's like, "Elnor," and he's like, "Not exactly." And then they realize that there's a mobile emitter on him, which makes sense why Jurati put the encryption code inside of the mobile emitter that is projecting Elnor rather than in the ship's holographic network,
Right,
because the
she could
Queen
just
that's what I
hack
was
it.
worried
that.
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to get to him.
Yeah. It was just one of the things I didn't notice in his first scene when he first pops up and when he's digging through the rifles. I didn't notice if he had the mobile emitter. I thought he was being directed by the ship.
I still think the mobile emitter can be attached to the inside of the holographic lattice and not the outside where it's vulnerable.
I mean, that's true, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can think of is just like sort of Easter eggy sort of thing. But yeah,
Mhm.
Well,
it's a little exposed. It feels a little silly.
But
to
I mean,
have,
like, even in Voyager, the Doctor put it on the inside of his boot. Like, even
Yeah.
that is more well
Oh,
protected.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I always remember him having it right there on the.
So
I think it was
there's
one time he
one
put it in his
episode
boot.
where he's adopting a lot of templates because the people are spying on the ship and they're gonna blow it up, and so he's like, I'm Janeway, I'm Chakotay, and anytime somebody figures out it's him, he zaps them with the hypo and puts them in stasis and adopts the template, and he's got to adjust the mobile emitter each time, and it's in the boot for that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Which episode is that? I feel like I haven't seen it.
I don't remember the name of it, but I'll figure it
the one
out.
with the hierarchy?
Y'all keep going.
Anyway.
Okay. All right, so we get this cool scene where Raffi where Elnor explains to Raffi and Seven what's going on. Jurati's still fighting the Queen, and then Seven's like, give me access to the ship's computer. And that's where we get this neat bit where Raffi's worried about, like, if you unlock the computer, you give the Queen what she wants. And then Seven goes, I need the computer to secure the ship. I have a plan. Seven having a plan usually is a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Elnor and Raffi agree, admit the computer access, and then for that minute while Seven is distracted, Raffi admits her guilt to the Elnor hologram, and the hologram explains, like, I may not be him, but I understand what he was thinking at the moment he died, and all he was thinking of was his love for you. No blame and no shame, which is exactly what Raffi needed to hear.
I think that
All right,
was
Big
a
J,
really
give me
good
your beef.
moment.
Go ahead.
No,
I could see
got
it.
got a note here that we are going pretty long and we're like just halfway through the episode, so I'm going to stop talking so we can pick up the pace. I do have one more. Do I? I don't know.
Do you?
I thought I had one more helping of beef later on, but I don't remember. So you guys might get lucky. I don't think I remember now.
I'm shocked. All right, so back into the tunnels. Picard is getting lost a little bit. He's clearly hasn't spent that much time down here. They come to a junction. He says, if we go left here, we get one place. We go right there, we get to another place. And that's when the laser beams show up again. So they start backtracking again. Clearly, he doesn't have like this place totally memorized or mapped. So they keep trying to avoid things. Back to La Sirena. Seven is accessing the ship's transporters. She beams the mercenaries out of the ship and right into the walls where Talon and Picard are. And then she also tries to beam the Borg Queen, but she has a built-in transporter inhibitor that she has built inside of her person or in that suit that she took off the Queen. Either one works for me. And that's when the Borg Queen starts coming at them. She's looking real angry, and she's got this like pick, some kind of tool. I don't know. It looked like didn't look like an intentional weapon. It looked like a big, like an axe pick or something. Mm-hmm. Charges at them. Elnor starts beating her. They start fighting, and then they've got her dead to rights, where they've got two women, or Raffi and Seven, standing over her with phasers drawn, and Elnor's on the other side of her, pointing his little sword at her. And, well, doesn't turn out that way. Queen uses her biomechanical tentacles, her mechanical tentacles, I don't think these are biological at all, and disables the mobile emitter, knocks Raffi off into the wall, and stabs into Seven at the exact same time in the stomach.
Yeah, I saw that in the trailer for the episode, and I was like, I swear to God, if she dies,
don't do
the
it.
angry letters that I will send, I will fucking riot. I knew that Jerry was in season 3 because I think she had talked about filming, and so I wasn't that worried. But I was like, swear to God, if she dies in this timeline and comes back as like a projection or some shit, I'm gonna lose my mind.
This was a lot of don't play with your food for me, right? Like, it's a concept that I had to learn when playing Magic the Gathering. It's something I need to learn in video games. I am bad about it, right? But if you're standing over somebody gloating, that's when you're fucked, right?
Yes.
Yeah, very much.
Immediately.
Game of Thrones taught us this too, with the mountain versus the fight with the sand snakes, right? Like, we saw that end very poorly. If you got your advantage, press it, end it, then you can gloat afterwards if you need to. But yeah, the Jurati Queen turned that around really quickly, very effectively, and it showed that she was just kind of toying with them the whole time. It's a cool scene. Cutting on to our next one. Or sorry, at the end of that scene, after she's disarmed the 3 of them, or disabled the 3 of them, she tells the computer to give her primary control of the vessel. She then tells the computer to set a course for the Delta Quadrant, and she's going to take advantage of the 400 additional years to expand the collective. Raffi tells tells her that Seven will die. I have to stop the bleeding. And Girardi Queen replies that she's assimilated millions of languages and all had common concepts such as love, hope, and fear. And then futility. Species thrive without love. She goes on. She's like just mocking Raffi and mocking the situation. She picks up Seven's knife. Kingdoms conquer without fear, but it is the imperfect nature of all organic things to fight an unwinnable battle against an undefeatable foe, death. Right? It's very Borg Queen, talking all highfalutin while somebody else is suffering and dying. We saw this in First Contact. We see it throughout Voyager. It fits really well, and I hate it.
I agree.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah, super creepy. We start seeing the sun finally rising, so this has been going on for quite some time now. Outside, Picard and Talon reaching the solarium, which we've seen a lot in this season in flashbacks. And that's when Sung and his men catch him there. He's no stranger to lost lab rats, he says, and to catch one you don't follow them through the maze, but you force them to the end. Okay. So
Yeah, he's the worst.
Yeah.
He's the
Well,
fucking worst.
Yeah. We've got Talon and Picard there unarmed, being pointed at with the same two dudes, the same two mooks that were down there before. One with a pistol, one with a rifle, and then Sung himself. Girardi Queen then raises the knife back on La Sirena. She's going to actually end and finish off Seven. But before she can bring the knife down, she finds herself crying. And Girardi takes control-ish or reasserts somewhat and starts, like, talking to her. And she uses the Borg Queen's same tools against her. The whole, like, when your hormones are high, when you've got, like, adrenaline and such flowing through you, the subconscious stuff or the other inhabitants in your brain can take over some. And this is where we probably get another Big J's beef. But this is the scene where Agnes essentially talks to the Queen, convinces the Queen to try a different way. Now, I'm gonna spike some of these. I'm gonna spike some of these for you, Big J, just to nail some out of the way.
All right.
The personality of the Borg is not isolated from the person that they assimilated, right? We've seen that Locutus behaves in a certain way that is different from your average Borg. The Queens don't all behave exactly the same, so there's some difference to them each. This is Agnes talking to herself, right? So her emotions are high, her feelings are high. There's going to be some level of convincing of herself, convincing your own self, that is easier than convincing another person. I don't know. I think that showing the Borg Queen this whole, in every iteration, the Borg always ends to devastation from the Federation, the Confederation, or whoever else is a pretty potent argument for a race that just wants to survive, for an individual whose consciousness has been alone for a long time and who suffered while in the hands of the Confederation, who suffered because of the temporal schism that's gone on, right? Like, this is a Borg Queen in particular that's susceptible to this argument. I don't think if you made this same argument to Alice Cridge's Queen, it would have worked, or if you'd made this to the Delta Quadrant Queen either, right? This specific Queen is susceptible to these arguments, and Agnes knows it because Agnes spent a hell of a lot of time in her head. All right, give me your beef now.
Okay. That was going to be it. That suddenly that was what it took to get the Queen to consider not assimilation, but cooperation, or at least she's thinking about it. And okay, all right, that's sure, but my big thing with that is they're rewriting the origin. No, I'm sorry, not the origin, but they're changing how the Federation, how everyone interacts with the Borg with this. So
what do you mean?
Whether it's
in the timeline?
Yeah, big change in the timeline.
I disagree. I don't think this Borg Queen intends to go back to Borg Unit Complex 1 or anything. She's going to go off and start her own little collective somewhere.
I tend to agree, yeah. My biggest beef with it was, like, it definitely read like the Lower Decks episode is like, I played chess and I taught the Borg Queen empathy, like that kind of thing. Which, yeah.
Which I liked, actually.
Like, yeah, but then, like, you know, there... Agnes and the Borg Queen are having like essentially couples therapy while Seven's bleeding out on the transporter pad.
Sure.
It's like, can we hurry this up? Perhaps. Like, it just felt that happens a little bit in Discovery where they, it's this huge thing where they only have so much time to do it, but then they have to have a moment.
Well,
Instead of
remember,
like before
right?
the thing instead of after the thing, but I just think it's and clearly she has to do that to be able to convince the Borg Queen to do what she needs to do. Fine. But I also just thought it was
some time
funny.
compression here going on too, right? Like that whole conversation could have taken like 2 seconds in the real world because it was happening in her head. So
Doesn't it pan down to 7 like in real time
times.
though? Yeah.
A couple
so
times.
I mean, it might have taken maybe like instead of like a minute, it might have taken like 10 seconds or more, whatever. But I just thought it was funny because imagining like Raffi looking at Agnes just having this internal dialogue while she's holding it out, it's like, can we?
Well, it's not the first time, nor will it be the last, that Star Trek takes advantage of some artistic license to
100%.
to make a scene, i.e., Spock in the Kelvin timeline on some mystery planetoid moon, seeing Vulcan destroyed, which would be impossible. But it's all for the visuals.
It's and I also just like, but and it's also so we can see Seven in peril and like Raffi being like, no, my girlfriend, and then like,
Let's take a minute to
like
gloat here. Let's take a minute to gloat here. We talked about how the Clockwork Queen that was in Stargazer, the first episode of the season, was Jurati, and it was not a queen that was trying to do evil things. She was trying to do something different, and Picard didn't trust her and blew them all up. That's what's going to result from this queen going out to wherever she's going, and then eventually she's going to end up in another version, meeting up with this version of Picard, right? Like, there's some cycle here that we kind of saw coming. The precise details are a little murky, but we called this for the most part.
That one to me definitely read as like, oh, I was right. Like, that's definitely what, because the second that I saw that stuff in the trailers, before the season even aired, I was like, that's fishy. But I also want to mention the fissure in space that ended up being the Borg. Is that a conduit or is that a space-time thing? That's my thing.
I think it's the latter. I think it's the
latter
thing.
I think it's the latter.
It might even be dimensional, really, because remember, this version of the Borg Queen is only existed in the Confederation timeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does she have to come from there to this prime timeline? Like, how does this all fucking work? Are we getting another splintered universe here? We don't know. The details don't really matter that much, but it does show up that we were supposed to be right. But yeah, I don't think that she's going to found the new collective, or she's going to join the Recollective, the old collective, try and reform it, because then she's fighting another queen. Doesn't seem very fun. She's probably just going to take what she's got and start building upon this new ideology that Jurati and her have emerged to agree upon.
It would also make sense as to why the design is so different in the Clockwork Borg Queen. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
You got anything to say here, Dag? Did I freeze again?
I think he froze.
No, he froze.
No, wait a minute. No, his eyes moved. You joker. You got us.
You did it. That was impressive.
That was good.
No, I have been trying to mull over on where exactly they're going to go. I like the fact that they seem to have removed themselves as one of those variables from the future of what's about to happen on Earth. But, if they just go back to the collective now, does that disrupt the 2100s? Does that disrupt the 2300s?
I don't think they're rejoining the collective though, because if they do, that changes a lot of technology.
I'm not saying that that's what they're gonna do. I'm playing out if they did this. There's disruptions. If they do this, there's disruptions. The only thing that they can really do is find a planet that nobody's ever heard of that's in need and help those people out, and then continue helping other people out, carving this area out without gaining the attention of the other Borg, who would be really happy to get a hold of 400-year-old anti-Borg technology on this version of La Sirena.
There's too much impact on in either of those versions, the Federation version or Confederate version.
The galaxy's really big. She can find a little corner somewhere far away from the Borg and far away from the Federation and just like, here's the Borg.
And not draw any attention?
Yeah. The galaxy's really fucking big.
I mean, we literally only know about like 3 or 4 sectors in the Gamma Quadrant, and then the only people we know in the Beta Quadrant are the Romulans, the Klingons, and the Gorn. And the Alpha Quadrant is like a smattering of us and the Cardassians and the Ferengi. There's all kinds of stuff on the Outer Rim that could just be a free-for-all that no one would know about after 400 years.
Yeah.
The thing I think is most interesting, though, is this idea that so they've got a Borg Queen, and she is alone on this ship, and she's going to take a trip to wherever she's going. Original heading was the Delta Quadrant. Okay, La Sirena is not a long-range ship. It's also not going to go warp 9.999 for like decades, right? But she might be building a transwarp like coil there, the same way that in Enterprise they were upgrading the engines on the like Arctic Explorer ship that they took. Yeah. So,
but La Sirena is in this in the Confederate universe. It is a long-range ship. Remember, it was in combat around Vulcan and then flew independently back to Earth to pick up.
That's not long range, dude.
It is long range.
That's 16 light years. That's not long range.
It's not really long range.
That's pretty long range for a small craft.
It's no. I think it's just a freighter. It's totally capable of moving around a few systems over, right?
Yeah.
But
Vulcan
Vulcan
and
and
Millennium
Earth are very
Falcon.
close apart. Yeah, it's the Millennium Falcon of Star Trek, basically. Whereas crossing the galaxy is a long-range trip.
The Millennium Falcon crosses galaxies. That's a bad metaphor.
Okay, that's a bad metaphor because Star Wars doesn't make any sense with these things.
No,
Star Trek's a bit better.
But I think quibbling over that is minutia laden.
Oh, I'm not even quibbling. I'm just saying I think it's interesting that she's gonna have to upgrade this thing just to get wherever she's going.
That's fair.
So,
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so cutting through the rest of the scene, let's build a universe of sevens is a beautiful line. It's also a really beautiful idea too, of people who actually like are made better because of their time in the Borg rather than simply drones that suffered. So whatever comes of this whole thing is a very interesting concept. We may not even explore it anymore in this season much, other than like looping back around to like the Clockwork Queen, stargazering it up a bit, but yeah, I think that that's a very interesting plot thread for something in the future to explore a lot of. What has this Borg cooperative been doing wherever they are?
Yeah. And I also kind of have a little bit of beef with it just because I think the Borg are supposed to be the antithesis. And so
yeah. I
don't know, it feels a little kumbaya-ish. It feels a little too like I don't know. It's still cool. And I haven't seen the rest of the season, and I'm not a screenwriter, and I don't whatever. But I just it feels a little off, but it's still cool. And I really loved I loved Annie as the Borg Queen, and I loved Allison, and just the way that they interacted as characters. And so, even if I don't totally like that, I think that as a whole, I really loved it.
Hey Dag, so if we're right here and this season picks up at the loop point where they're all back on Stargazer now, Picard has to make a different choice, right? So we have a causality problem though, because the only way that this queen exists that they're running into in this scene is through the time travel.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on this?
Two Renees, man. One has to live, one has to die.
I don't understand what that means yet.
It's a time loop. Either. So think of it like this. It's a recursive time loop. One way we loop, and then we loop again, and it's just a weird... It is a paradox. Because one way we loop, the Confederacy wins, and then we have to loop back so that the Confederacy doesn't win. And in each of those in that loop...
So they have to exist simultaneously because the loops are existing.
The loops have to exist simultaneously because both universes are sort of dependent on the other one.
Okay, that makes sense. Cool. All right, so...
It's weird as heck, and time
shit,
travel...
I don't understand.
Time-wimey, wibbly-wobbly bullshit, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cut back to Picard with Sung. We get this really creepy tech bro, captain of industry moment from Sung trying to compare himself to Picard, captains of ships and captains of industry and so forth and so on. I hate Sung. He's so bad.
He's very much like every bad trait of every billionaire that exists now put into one.
He's
and I
every
don't like
bad
him.
thing you've ever thought about Zuckerberg, Musk, and the rest, or Peter Thiel, all of them rolled into one dude. Just their bad bits, none of the good. Yeah.
Nope. And he drives a Tesla.
Vaulting ambition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that moment, Picard starts like kind of trying to talk him out of this, but Sung's not having any of it. Sung goes, in another future, maybe Picard, you and I could have been friends, and then goodbye. He starts to walk away and orders his mooks to kill Picard. Back to Talon's apartment, Rios finally succeeds in breaking through the computer, and it starts rebooting, and we start getting like audible statements of reboot 20% complete, 40% complete, etc., etc.
Installing Windows updates.
Basically,
40% complete.
Rios and Teresa start having a serious conversation. I love their relationship. It feels very real. It's very fast moving, but very real. They are cute together, and she's amazing. And
let's not deny the tiny little bit of Stockholm syndrome that's happening here.
Right.
For which one of them?
100%.
Both.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
he was wounded, and so there's like the Nightingale effect a little bit, but then like the codependency here. It's developed. It's not. I don't think it's unhealthy, but I do think that the urgency of the situation is playing into those chemicals that are flooding their bodies.
100%.
Well, they get along so well because she is his great grandmother,
and he is his own grandfather.
He's screwing around. He's taking that chance. But anyway, I digress.
Raise your hand if you think Rios stays. Okay.
My hand's up. Yeah, me and Dag.
Yep.
For those of you who are listening and can't see,
that's true.
Yeah, I think he stays.
I am on the fence. I would understand either way, if that makes sense. Like, I can totally see him doing that, and I can also totally see him not doing that, because thinking of like, okay, well, things are great, but also this. But yeah, because he could mess up the timeline like crazy, and probably knows that. And I don't know. I'm on the fence.
Renzo, how many more scenes or stuff we have? Let's blow through that so we can
find
talk
out.
about.
I'm trying. So we get this bit where they end up kissing. It's very touching, and at the last second, like he teleports out of her hands, basically, using the weird door transporter. He appears back at the solarium. He instantly starts shooting. He kills one of the mercenaries, and then the other one grabs a knife, grapples with Rios. Rios overpowers him, ends him. And then Sung picks up the same phaser, or the same weapon that Talon had, points it at them, and is like, bet you don't require anything special to get this to work. I can figure out a future gun, kind of thing. And Rios concedes, no, nothing fancy to figure out, but it does require the right DNA, and if you held it too long, it would explode. Sung tosses it up, it goes off like a flashbang, and then he runs before anybody can catch him.
He just disappeared like Batman. He's gone.
I liked that a lot. I only wish Rios had been a dick and just not told him.
Oh,
yeah, that's true. But if he
don't
died,
worry about that.
Butterflies.
Don't worry about that sound. That's just it calibrating itself to your user preferences.
Right.
Yeah, it's just charging
user
up.
preferences. It's just booting.
It's charging up. Yeah.
It's just installing updates.
And we talk
Installing
about
Windows
butterflies
updates.
and stuff like that, but like if you're already in the past and you're writing a new timeline, like this is expected to happen.
Yeah.
All right, so then we cut back to Girardi Queen reassimilating Seven. Her like agony during this scene was very unexpected. We've seen many people get assimilated, and there's never been like this sort of like I'm dying, she's ripping up my lungs kind of pain. There was a lot of pain.
Well, I think partially it was because not only was she being assimilated, but also kind of reborgified in like a very quick period of time, and also like is currently bleeding out and not enjoying that either. And so like I think that those two things probably compounded, and also because of how quickly she gets all of those implants back, when those probably took who knows how long to be like all put on at once. It's just all happening at once, you know. And so that makes sense to me, but it was a little much. It was a lot.
It was a lot. I am curious though, if you guys remember in Voyager, remember how when Seven got her like optical implant removed, she didn't have an eye, and the doctor had to make her an eye to put into it. I wonder if she still has that eye at this point, because the thing that's above her brow is the interface for the optical implant, right? Like, did that ruin her connection with her eye that she's got in right now? Like, how does that all work? They're not going to explain this. I'm just wondering.
I think that's why they couldn't remove that, because you get to a point where you do these things, you do these modifications, and they're like one-way trips. When we do this surgery, we do this thing. There's no reversing it, and we have to keep this component in order for it to work. So yeah, I think there were dependencies there that
it wasn't only her it wasn't only her ocular implant though. It was also she had like a cranial. What was it called? There's a whole episode where like Icheb has to give his up
Cortical
so
node.
that she can survive because
Yeah,
she
that's what it was.
cannot live
Cortical
without
node.
it. Cortical node, that's it. And so there's that. I mean, that's a huge part of it. And I think, I mean, also it's partially because like she's had these implants for the whole tenure of her character, and we're not just gonna change that up for funsies. But like, but yeah, I mean, to me, it would make sense that like something went wrong with like the bleeding, like oxygen to her brain or whatever. I mean, that tracks. But yeah, no, I think that one is definitely more. That one is more necessary than just the eyeball, I feel.
Yeah. So Seven regains consciousness. She feels her implant. She sees that her hand has got the metal bits on it again. She has this moment of looking like aghast. She's both alive, which is gratifying news, but she's been reborged and she hates that. And then Raffi asks Girardi if it's still you, and the Borg Queen responds with yes and no, and then we're becoming something new. So we get Rios and the team outside with Talon and Picard heading back towards the ship after Picard picks up a key, and the key that he picks up is the key that he used to unlock his mother's room. He says that he's having the strangest memory to Talon, and Talon tells him to follow it, figure out what's going on, right? And here's where we get the controversial scene where in reverse we essentially see Yvette decide to hang herself. Telling the story in proper order, what happened is little John Luke found the key, decided that he wanted to go lay down with his mother who was asleep. He unlocks the door, goes in, falls asleep next to her, right? And she wakes up, looks at him, gets out of the room, strolls into the solarium, hangs herself, and then we see that young John Luke finds her hanging body sometime later than that, right?
Yeah.
And he immediately turns and runs, and that's the end of that story as far as we know so far.
Yeah. I will say, like, I know y'all did a thing about the whole warning. I think that there should have been a specific content warning for it. Because as somebody who is mentally ill and has, has nearly been in that situation, it was a lot. I had to pause it. I had to walk away. I had to get a drink, and I didn't know it was coming. And I think that if you were to do something as simple as this episode contains themes of self-harm and suicide, if your loved one is struggling, here's a number, viewer discretion advised. That's it. That's all it would take. It wouldn't have spoiled anything specifically, and honestly, the people that are worried about the spoilers probably haven't had the misfortune of dealing with something like this and feeling like that. I think that when you're trying to represent people who are mentally ill, and you kind of miss the point, of like, maybe we should protect these people from that kind of thing. But no, I think that the scene was handled well. And I think that it was done well. It wasn't overly graphic. It was a lot, but it wasn't, to me, overly done. And I think I think it was fine. I just think that there should have been something. There should have been something there.
So I don't disagree with you that there should be more detail to the warning, right? And Dag and I talked about this, but I recently found another TV show that depicts like somebody hanging themselves. Again, no warning, nothing of any kind. I'd mentioned Chernobyl in our little addendum, right? But now I know that Severance has one as well, and also has no kind of trigger warning. I don't think that there's any sort of standard expectation or standard like pressure on the industry to provide these yet. If we want to have that, we should start telling them this. I just don't think it's fair to single out any single show for not doing it when there isn't a standard across the board.
Totally, to completely agree with that. I don't think that there is there's a standard for it, and I think that there should be.
Like I said, so in the addendum, I'm particularly tell a bit about it. But Chernobyl opens. The first scene is a Professor Legasov talking about something to a recorder, and then he hangs himself, and we see the reaction of his feet dangling and his cats looking at him and everything. It's a rough scene for literally the first scene of the show, right? So and this is not the first time that we've seen a suicide in Star Trek of any kind. We've seen many, in fact. But yeah, I can totally see why there's a good argument for including more detail on things. I just think that it should be like on streaming services at the very least, something you opt into, right? Like just give me more info on what's coming up.
I tend to agree. I like the opt-in moment. But yeah, I don't want to go too far.
Yeah,
but
no more need unless you have something you want to say, Big J or Susie. Yeah, cool. All right.
Well, the one thing I will say about it is the attention to detail that is given to the scene, because this was what I thought of, and I'm sure the writers were probably thinking the same thing and ready to nip the complaints in the bud. But after that, we're of course all probably getting on the internet about to scream about well, Picard's mother was seen in Where No Man Has Gone Before, old, so forth, and all it took was this one line. He said, I often imagined her older and offering me tea. So it's like they, boom, just put it right in there. Like, it fooled you, Trek Beards. You're not getting us on that. We know exactly where you were going.
Now go
I really
back
like
and
that.
watch Where No One's Gone Before and don't cry.
yeah,
Totally changed the scope of that episode
Right?
now. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm with you though, Big J. That was a good one for them to catch and to address, right? Like that was such
Yep.
a small thing they could have missed that people would have, or well, Trek Beards would have been pissy about.
yeah, but it just shows you the great writing that they've had up to and even this point. Is something that small that the writers know.
Yeah.
They know their stuff. They know their stuff inside and out, because a small detail like that, you're right. That one thing missed would have been all anybody would have talked about in regards to this entire season, and would have shit on the writers and the show and everything else about it. But they're smart. They're real savvy. They put in that one line,
It's all
covered
you
it
need.
right
It's
up.
the same thing as the Romulan
All
foreheads
you
line
need.
from season 1, right?
Yep.
Like,
Northern and
look,
Southern.
they finally fucking explained this stupid thing. Great.
Right. You're Romulan
okay.
from Mississippi, but we're from North, so our heads look different.
yeah.
All right, so one last thing in the scene. Talon gives him a hug and tells him that love can be a source of both grief and pain. It could be a curse, but it's always a gift, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talon and Picard kind of stand there for a second, and then we go back to another memory of Picard throwing a rock and smashing the solarium, which is delightfully Dag's background. It's a very poignant scene. I really liked it. I thought that the special effect for it was really bad, but I didn't care.
I have no frame of reference there. I'm not a.
I mean,
Right.
I don't
Never
the,
know.
broken glass.
the holodeck just didn't know how to render it that well. He could have easily just said computer and program, but no.
Mm-hmm.
He had to throw a rock to prove that he wasn't in a simulation.
Okay,
Right.
so cutting back to last Dana, we've got Seven again looking pretty shaken by the reappearance of her Borg implants. She's thinking about how she had been Seven for longer than she was ever Annika Hansen, and it was nice to be ordinary for a while. And then Raffi just is like, whoa, hold on. You have never in your life been ordinary. You are the most extraordinary person I've ever known, which is such a good little line. It's such a loving scene between the two.
I love them. I love them. I don't like. I know we don't have a lot of time. I'm gonna make this quick. I love them. I think they're neat. I think it's amazing that they're women who've been through shit and they're going through shit together, and they don't hug and kiss and hold hands every 5 seconds. And I heard somebody the other day said they don't have chemistry. First of all, you're not watching the same show. That's some horse shit. Second of all, if you think they don't have chemistry because they're not kissing and holding hands every 5 minutes, then I hate to break it to you, but you're fetishizing them and get off my page. Also,
That's what it is. They're picturing, well, there should be some girl on girl porn happening here.
I've gotten comments like that on my Twitter. I've gotten comments like that from men who have been like, well, I just want to see them make out on screen. Aha.
Yep.
You're telling on yourself. It's like a spray bottle. I'm over
Yep.
it. And so, I'm tired. Yeah, very much. It's like correcting a pet. But
Unfortunately, that's to be expected. Honestly,
yeah,
it's a
to be
shame.
expected, especially considering how sexualized Jerry has been throughout her career. And I want to fist fight every man who's ever wronged her. But
This is the penultimate scene.
it's a wonderful scene. I love that they're both people. It's not lovey-dovey and romantic, and it doesn't cheapen their relationship at all. They've been in a relationship for a year. It's been rough, but they have, and they're people, and I love that about them. Anyway, I'm gay, and I think they're neat.
I could just
I
see
felt-
dudes saying there's no chemistry between them because they still have their clothes on.
That's exactly what it reads like, and I'm so tired.
Big
Like,
J,
Yeah.
please
stop
watch
hurting
them
me.
act.
Please stop
I'm-
hurting me with
I'm
comments
hurting you?
like that. Yeah, that one hurt.
I'm
my
not saying
brain.
that's what I would say. I'm
No,
just saying
I
that's
know.
what they're
That's
saying.
what they sound like when they say
know.
that.
Yeah.
Just go, I just want to watch women make out. It's like,
Damn
then
incels.
you're, and
Go
anyway,
find
we can talk
porn,
about
bros.
the promo.
Right,
Alright.
yeah, it's free, it's everywhere. You don't have to get it out of Star Trek.
All right, so cut back to they're talking with Girardi Queen and how she's now completely balanced between her two selves, and she tells them that it's time to go. Raffi starts to protest, and Seven wants to know more about what this is all going on. Half of you was our friend, and maybe in time all of you could be. Girardi Queen agrees, maybe in time we can be, but a deal's a deal. Ship for a life, fair deal. So time for you to go. And then she tells them this very cryptic message that they have to tell Picard about how the future will not have any need for a Borg Slayer for me, or from us at least, and then tell Picard that the mission must not be postponed. There must be two Renees, one who lives and one who died. And then before they can even ask, like, wait, what do you mean? They're already beamed off the ship. And
Oh, I
they're
get
gone.
it. I think I get it.
I might be following, but go ahead.
I followed Dag's thing that it's just a recursive time loop that both have to constantly be going on forever. But the problem with a loop is that they usually don't have an escape. But I don't know.
I think I get it. And it's because they're both timelines that have been created now have to be maintained.
Yeah, like
There's
it's
a-
schisms of the universe.
Yes, so there has to be a timeline where Renee lives. There has to be one where she dies. So they both have to happen. And even though there's a branch that happens between one lives and one dies, they intersect again in a manner speaking when the Borg Queen here from the Confederate timeline, whether she takes over from the yada yada, it's this one that we know, the Girardi Borg Queen in her timeline intersects with the timeline in which Renee lived. So both have to happen, because the way they seem to be handling this, and just how I'm predicting they're handling it, is kind of like how it happened, was described in Avengers Endgame, where everything there's branches, every timeline exists.
Yeah, that's just
There's-
many worlds theory of yeah.
Yes, many worlds theory. So it's not, we're not talking about Back to the Future time travel. We're talking that once you create a branch, that branch has to
So
continue. You
That's
can't
normally how things work in Star Trek, right?
Uh-huh.
Normally things are many worlds interpretation where it just creates a new branch with every choice. We see that from like parallels and such, right?
Yeah.
But this one, according to Q, is different. Something about this one's a little different. So I don't know. We'll see. We
Mhm.
just don't know yet, but I'm sure next episode will tell us, and if not, Q will laugh at us and tell us too. So
Yeah.
back to the last scene. We see the last scene lifting off from the ground, leaving some dust and some dirt all over, and then goes to warp in atmosphere. Neat, looked great looking shot. And then we get this sad moment where Rios goes, "Oh, they took my ship," and then Seven goes, "You mean my ship?" Which was delightful.
Oh, I love her. Queen.
But there's more. There's layers to this joke, though, right?
Mhm.
Because it's not just Prime's version of it being Annika's ship. It's also like in the Confederation timeline, she's the president. It's also her ship there too.
Yeah.
So in both realities, it's really her ship at this point.
Yeah.
I wanted to say one thing concerning the whole Renee thing. This probably won't happen,
Sorry,
but what if the
headset
whole one who lives
I
and
can't
one who
hear you.
dies thing is about mental health and like the depression has to die or something like that? I don't know. It seems dumb, but it might something like that might go through.
I think that's a skosh deep for the audience that they're
Maybe.
presenting
Probably.
to.
But anyway, continue.
Yeah. No. Sorry about that. Anyways,
You're good.
we get this fun bit where Picard like runs in and he's like looking worried, and then Raffi starts to like explain. He looks at Seven's implants. Seven explains that she feels like herself now. Yeah.
Picard. Where's our ride?
Her.
Is that our ride?
Oh, I love her. I love that scene of just like of her being willing to live with herself, of who she knows herself to be, and to be comfortable and confident in that. And I think that's again one of the sort of autistic coded things about it, is learning to be okay with being different, even if not everybody understands you. The people that love you and that you love will. And I think that just I love her.
Yeah, so they're like being sad about the loss of Girardi, but they've regained themselves and they're going to be able to complete their mission at this point. So now we're down two from this group of friends. Both Eleanor is dead, and to their perspective, at the very least, Girardi is gone too. So they talk about how Sung, they talk about how Sung is not a quitter and he's going to try again. He'll find some way to do something to the shuttle or the mission that's lifting off tomorrow. And at that moment, they get the warning passed along to Picard about how there must be two Renees, and he doesn't look like he understands. He looks quite perplexed, just as we are supposed to be as viewers. And yeah, that's basically where the scene ends.
It's so good. I really liked this episode. I thought it was
Any
wonderful.
chance the second Renee is his nephew?
No,
I don't think so.
I also
yeah.
agree. I also agree. I just wanted to point that out for the audience. If anybody's thinking, what about his other Renee? I'm like, yeah, you could make a case that Renee's death in 2371 sort of put Picard on a different path. But if we're gonna do timey-wimey, can we go into sixth gear and do timey-wimey full balls to the wall, please?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, Dronati's out there. That's what I'm calling her now, Dronati. Dronati. Agnes Dronati. Or Borg. We can say Borgness Dronati.
Borgness.
Borgness.
I like that one.
I think the
Dronati.
official name for them together is like Borgatti or something like that.
Borgatti.
I thought it was Legion.
I wanted to mention something because I cannot be the only person who's thought of this. I don't think that I am, but there's like the whole ship name I think for Seven and Raffi is Safi, and so I've called us Sapphics.
Oh,
Saffics.
Yeah, that'll work.
And Emmett said it was canon, so he's right, and I'm right.
Well,
so any predictions for this last episode coming up?
Oh boy. Okay, so things I need to wrap up. Number 1, why Q did this all in the first place. Number 2, I need to see Guinan again. Number 3,
agreed.
I need to see alien FBI guy again. Number 4, we're gonna end up back on the Stargazer. Number 5, Rios stays behind with Teresa. And number 6, Picard makes a different decision, and Rios on the Stargazer will move forward in this timeline, while Confederate Rios will stay behind with Teresa and navigate her through the upcoming World War. And that's why her medical supplies make it to be on La Sirena in the first episode.
That'd be cool. Also, whatever happened to Corey?
Oh,
Did we ever?
Good cue.
Fuck off.
Good cue.
She pieced out.
She
fucked off over here.
I mean, if the rumors are true and they're gonna do some fudgery with some retconning of stuff, Corey is Nooney and Sung's mom.
Oh, what?
Hey everybody, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our Patreon and Anchor supporters. Big thanks to Stephanie Baker, S. Tam, Anne Marie, Jim Cook, and Nora Hickson. We really appreciate your support. Thanks for being a part of Beyond Trek Podcast.
I'm done. I'm out. I gotta work in the morning.
That's exactly where I'm gonna cut it. Just at the perfectly cut scream.
Do it.
Oh.
Yes.
Please. Oh my God. Just do like a false outro. Do a false outro right there.
Psych.
Good.
We're back.
Yeah. Just
well,
kidding.
we
like
have
technical issues.
We do have an addendum that I'm going to be attaching to this episode. That's another half an hour. So yeah.
Where's Fonzie and where's the shark?
He's looking. He's still looking in the mirror with the comb.
But yeah, I want to see. I want to see how this ends up for all of them really, but especially I'm really interested in the new Borg Queen, Agnes lady. I'm really interested to see what happens there. I
think we're gonna find out much about it. I think we're only gonna get the other half, like the Stargazer like encounter. It's just gonna be the peaceful one. I don't know if we're gonna find out much.
That's what I think too.
but
But
I
I'm still
wanna.
curious.
Give me it in a book. Like, I don't care. Some author
Write
can
the
write it and
book.
tell
Give me
more,
the
but-
story
Audio
of
drama.
Give me the story of Agnes and Annie in space, building this new, nice Borg empire.
There's
Nice
been
Borg
other
Empire.
there's been other storylines just dropped in the season. Why wouldn't they do it with that?
I
That's
mean,
not
I just
dropping a storyline. It's just outside of the scope of the
it's just
story.
making it like more like, what do you think happened, and then opening the avenue for like novels and shit.
Well, I'll expand on it more after we do the end of the review for the season finale, because I've got some stuff that
We got beef.
yeah
layer
We got a
but
whole
it-
cow
it'll-
at this point. Big
It'll
J.
only
Yeah.
right the
A
cows
dairy fucking farm.
over here, and there's beef from it. It's just the path of the season, but it will make more sense.
Yeah. It's
after-
definitely it's a lot of really fast pacing, and I think that there's a lot of little tiny shit that's kind of supposed to throw you off.
Mhm.
And I like that about it, because that's kind of how it would seem in real life if you were doing that. Like, it would just is this the thing? Is that would that matter? Like yeah. But I feel like the one thing that I really it's the Borg Queen stuff, and then also where's Guinan?
Well,
Where's Guinan?
my prediction next week is that you guys will want to bring your barbecue sauce.
Not the barbecue sauce. Yeah, I'll bring white sauce too.
Bring some
Just bring,
horseradish,
like multiple.
some
On the
cheddar.
bright side, we're gonna have 2 episodes to watch for next week, so maybe you can spread out some of your beef between both instead of focusing on just one.
Strange
Okay.
New Worlds and
Strange New
Picard's
Worlds!
last episode. Renzo, before we outro here, do you have any needs for the last episode of Picard season 2?
So I like most of yours. Generally, with you, I if there's a if the Federation timeline continues on with characters like Elnor, Girardi, and Rios back, but they don't remember the choices that their alternates made in the other timeline, then I'm fine with them leaving characters like Rios behind. If they do remember it, then I don't think it makes any
That
sense.
will introduce some
for it.
weirdness, and it will be
Right.
sad. Like, I want them to live with the lessons learned here, but if the lessons learned here mean we undo Seven and Raffi's growth that just happened this season, that would suck. I would hate
Yeah,
that.
that would really suck.
So-
I don't want that.
We've seen before where Q will fuck with Picard specifically, and Picard's the only one who sees what's going on in memories or remembers what's going on. This Q is far less precise and far more dying, so maybe he can't just reintegrate memories properly. Maybe Picard's the only one that remembers all this shit. Who knows? I really would like for next season to still have Girardi, Elnor, Raffi, Rios as characters in them. No matter who in the TNG cast is coming, I want them.
And I
back.
need my Stargazer spinoff.
Ditto.
I
man,
need
ditto.
my Stargazer spinoff. First of
I
all,
will take Seven and Raffi as well.
the ship
Please.
design for the Stargazer is so good to be wasted on one freaking episode.
Two. It's
yes.
coming back next episode. Don't worry.
Yeah, okay, 2, but I mean, total time is going to be like 3.5
Yeah,
minutes
I
on
know.
screen. Like,
Can I have like the motion picture fly around scene with the Stargazer, please?
Yes,
Well,
please, or the lower decks one too.
If,
Just
Yeah.
if there's
same
enough
music
of
over
a
it.
if there's enough of a fan push, because that's how we got Strange New Worlds. The
If
fans demanded it, they wouldn't let up, kept pushing it,
oh,
and now
then,
we've got Strange New Worlds.
and then
I'm
we
gonna
get
start
and then we
lobbying
get
for Seven
Santiago
Rounds as well, too.
Cabrera doing the captain's monologue.
Yes.
Oh,
With a
Maybe he'll
cigar
finally
in
get
one
to smoke a
hand.
cigar too.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I would
Oh
love
my
that.
God.
So
There's
yeah,
another
no.
spin-off.
gosh, no, there's so much cool stuff happening this week with Strange New Worlds and Picard season 2 coming to a close. If you missed it, the Strange New Worlds intro is now available on YouTube.
It's
and
beautiful.
There are custom edits. There are custom edits of this featuring
course.
every
It's so fun.
rendition of
It's so funny.
of a Star Trek music.
The best one is Faith of the Heart. Let's be real. Faith
It's-
of the Heart
100%.
over the
I-
Strange New Worlds
it's-
one is so good.
It's good, but because I made the soft metal DS9
DS9.
one,
Oh
my God, yeah.
I'm in love with that one, and it's perfectly timed, and I can't get enough of it. I probably watched my own video like 40 times.
They did that when Prodigy came out as well, and my favorite one was Sabotage by the Beastie Boys. That one was
That's
was
definitely
good.
a Star
That
Trek
one,
theme song.
that sticks in my brain. Oh God, Star Trek's great. Star Trek fans are awesome.
And yes, they are. And
We're
we
so
really
cool.
appreciate them getting to the end of this recording with us. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for all the great Star Trek stuff coming out. And always go boldly with Beyond Trek Podcast.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your years. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.